So we have a lot of our clients international. We do work with Indonesia, we're working with multinational, we do a lot of Mexico,
Ladies and gentlemen, if I could ask you please to take seats. If you're standing, please grab a seat nearest to you. At the end of today's session, of course, there is a wonderful buffet and an opportunity to network. So plenty of opportunity later to continue these, I'm sure, very, very meaningful conversations. Thank you very much. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome everybody to this BritCham event, the first set-piece event of our hubs. This is the Climate Change and Environment Hub, led by Jeffrey Chatelier. It's wonderful to see so many people this afternoon. We're extremely delighted to have distinguished guests here, and they will be introduced separately by Jeffrey as chairman. I would particularly like to thank 4 annual partners of these BritCham hubs, and they are Prudential Indonesia, Standard Chartered, Unilever Indonesia, and Wildlife Works Indonesia as well. So BritCham has moved to a new format. We have 7 hubs of great relevance to you, our members. So those of you who are guests, you might not know, but these are on the back of some very, very detailed surveys where members particularly expressed those sectors and subsectors that they would like to get most involved with BritCham. Just a few words of introduction to Geoffrey, the chairman himself. Geoffrey Chatelier is a conservation scientist. He's also the CEO of Forest Carbon, a forestry restoration and conservation company with offices in Jakarta and Singapore. He has advised major corporations, multilateral institutions, and also governments on conservation finance, on forestry and sustainability for over 15 years in Southeast Asia. Most importantly, he is the chairman of BritCham's Climate Change and Environment Hub. Without further ado, I would like to invite Geoffrey, please, to formally get this afternoon underway with a first introduction. Jeff.
Thank you so much, Chris. It's great to see everyone here today, and I have the honor of introducing Ambassador Dominic Jeremy. He has been the British Ambassador to Indonesia and Timor-Leste. Previously, he was appointed as the British Ambassador to Afghanistan from 2016 to 2017, and also the United Arab Emirates from 2010 to 2014. Much of his career focuses on managing the UK's trade, investment, and its relations with various countries. And I also know that he's a conservation at heart and has also led one of the largest conservation organizations in the world, the Zoological Society of London. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much indeed, Geoffrey, and thank you all for coming to this event and to BritCham and the Climate Change Hub for arranging this event. And goodness me, what a stellar list of participants are talking to you this afternoon, and I'm not one of them. But I am delighted that you have Rahmat. Thank you for joining us. Donnie as well, and to all the panelists, enormous thanks from me. And I'm just going to talk big picture for a moment. Why am I grateful you're here? Because climate change is the existential challenge of our time, and that is essentially driving the business opportunities that we're going to be discussing this afternoon. The global stocktake just before COP28, it showed us the report card on the Paris climate commitments from 2015. And ladies and gentlemen, it was a pretty downbeat, a pretty depressing school card. If I got that when I was a kid, my parents would frankly have locked me in my bedroom with my books and forced me to study. It says current worldwide plans are more or less 20 gigatons of CO2 short of where they need to be. Now, what's a gigaton? Well, it's a lot. Think of it as 200 million elephants is 1 gigaton. So roughly the same mass. So 20 gigatons, you're talking 4 billion elephants short. And ladies and gentlemen, believe me, I've run a conservation society. I know that 4 billion elephants is a lot. And we're already touching on a 1.5 degree world, and we're heading towards, frankly, not only 2, but beyond, if ambition and implementation do not align and rise quickly. And business models, we need to define and find business models that deliver that kind of CO2 reduction. And we need to do that more quickly than we are on track for at the moment. And it's not going to happen unless we can get capital powering this transition. The UK's bilateral energy transition programme, Antari, and our engagement with the Just Energy Transition Programme are crucial ways in which we, the UK, are partnering here in Indonesia in order to help bring that capital into the transition. And we're doing that with Indonesia firmly in the driving seat, as President Jokowi set out when he saw the potential of the JETP model. JETP and Mentari are ways to improve the implementation of existing energy policies, but also to unlock greater private sector investment. We know that to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals, the amount of funding required is something like $10 trillion a year. We know that ODA, overseas development funding, across the globe is something like $450 billion a year. That gap, ladies and gentlemen, isn't going to come from aid. It's not going to come from governments. So somehow we need to develop our business models in such a way that the private sector incentives and investments are there to encourage, to enable the business sector to move in there. And the Mentari program is one of the ways in which we set out a potential way of the future in partnership with Brantas, with PT SNE. We've delivered 3 projects with a total output of about 7 megawatts of clean renewable energy in particularly unusual manners as demonstrators. I was in Sumba the week before last, seeing one of these, the impact of one of these photovoltaic programs in a very remote area. And it was transformational on the economy of that area. And it was more than repaying the original capital invested. And that's the kind of transformation that we're looking for, but at a national and at a global scale. Renewable energy plays a pivotal role in clean energy sources, and I know many of you will be talking about that this afternoon. And I'm delighted that UK renewable energy companies are already looking to bring their world-leading innovation to invest in Indonesia. Lightsource BP, Ion Ventures, already seeking opportunities in solar energy and EV charging. Marriott Drilling and Howden, working closely with Indonesian state-owned enterprises on geothermal projects. Nova Innovation, promoting their tidal stream energy technology. The UK and Indonesia have agreed to work closely on trade policy areas on the renewable energy sector as well, so that we can support the creation of a better environment to benefit both countries, and including under the umbrella of the Joint Economic and Trade Committee umbrella. So, as you were kind enough to mention, Jeffrey, my background in conservation, I'm the first person to say we need to think about the intrinsic value of biodiversity. And goodness me, when you look at this country, what a great value it is. But there's also an economic value. The health of soil determines agricultural yield, and biodiversity amongst rice seeds help manage crop disease. And Indonesia is right up there on some of the agri-tech innovations that we're looking to support through partnerships from the UK. Tree and root systems hold flooded land together. But as the Dasgupta economic review of economics of biodiversity showed, we are at risk of undermining the very ecosystems we depend on. And that's why I'm delighted tomorrow to be going to the FACT dialogue, the Forest, Agriculture and Commodities Trade Dialogue, which Indonesia and the UK have been chairing for the last 2 years, a global dialogue involving countries from all across the globe, looking to protect and promote vital trade while protecting valuable ecosystems. And that is the balance we have to create. And the next frontier of national and natural capital cooperation is blue. And Indonesia, with over 100,000 kilometers of coastline and the marine economy estimated to be worth somewhere north of $200 billion US. I'm delighted that the UK is able to support that with the Blue Planet Fund scaling up in Indonesia. So in conclusion, back to those 4 billion elephants. One of the most effective tools to get those elephants sorted, or those emissions reductions to happen, is to put a price on carbon, to properly account for costs we generate by putting carbon into the atmosphere. As the UK, we are a strong supporter of carbon pricing and a pioneer on carbon markets through both domestic action and our support for the uptake of carbon pricing schemes around the world, including here in Indonesia. And I'd like to pay tribute for the engagement and the partnership that we've had from the Indonesian government around the whole subject of carbon pricing. You've taken important steps forward on carbon pricing with a cap and trade scheme for the power sector, new financial regulation to create a regulated carbon exchange, and an ongoing work on carbon tax. Indonesian regulations are opening up the potential for carbon markets as an important means of mobilizing the private sector and reducing emissions in a cost-effective way. Ladies and gentlemen, we as the UK are proud to be a partner in that endeavour. This is worth doing, and I very much hope that the conversations this afternoon will help unlock pathways for you as the business community from both our countries to be able to see ways of investing and developing the markets, carbon and renewable and other markets here. Thank you again to BritCham and to the Climate Change Hub for putting on this event, and thank you for participating. And let's see what we can do together to tackle those 4 billion elephants that we are short at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador. Now it's my pleasure to introduce the chairman of BritCham, Pak Rino Dano Supotro, known as Pak Doni. Pak Doni is the vice chairman of Standard Chartered Bank, covering ASEAN, and also the president commissioner for Indonesia. His work at the bank is responsible for driving execution of their strategy of providing governance and oversight over Standard Chartered's footprints that span all 10 ASEAN countries. Prior to this, he has held the role of CEO for Standard Chartered Bank Indonesia between 2016 and 2019, marking the first Indonesian to hold this post in the bank's 160 years of operations in the country. It's my pleasure to introduce Pak Doni to the stage. Thank you.
Thank you. Very good afternoon and a very warm welcome to our flagship event, first one in 2024. So allow me to address some of our, very, very special guests here. His Excellency Deputy Minister Bapak Ahmad Khairuddin of the Colonial Ministry of Maritime Affairs and Investment. His Excellency Ambassador, sorry, hang on. I got this suddenly. His Excellency Ambassador Dominic Jeremy, His Majesty's Ambassador to Indonesia and Timor-Leste, Pak Edo Mahendra, I know actually it's very long actually, the new title that you have, but Head of the National Energy Transition sort of Task Force. I think actually I'll short it actually there. I know that the technical sort of and all the rest of it, but I know I'm not. I know Pak Ahmad actually have been great friends, and really the two people actually who have been driving energy transition and really actually the agenda of climate change in Indonesia. As you know, we're very much involved in the JETP together. I think we've had numerous meetings across, I don't know, London, DC, New York, Dubai, Jakarta, of course, so it's been quite intense on that front. I just wanted to say that on behalf of BritCham Indonesia, we're really very proud to have this. I mean, you just see the lineup of the speakers. This is really what I would call it's almost like a mini COP28 in terms of the people who are here. They are really the people who understand, the whole sort of specifics. So thank you actually, Pak Purbaya, Pak Raju, Kiskawa, everybody actually who's here really are the subject matter experts in that field. And thank you for participating. Now, this team actually holds particular significance in light of the current global challenges. I think existential, I love, Ambassador, your 4 billion elephants here, but more importantly, perhaps the existential issue that we face right now. So, no doubt, fighting climate change and transitioning to net zero, we know is at the forefront of Indonesia's focus going forward. As one of the most active chambers in Indonesia, BritCham, we have been playing a pivotal role in helping to support the government of Indonesia's transition to a sustainable future through our climate change and environment hub led by a fantastic chair, Jeff Chatterjee, as highlighted earlier. This hub is very active actually in fostering partnerships between British and Indonesian firms, facilitating collaborative efforts and leveraging collective expertise. Now, Bridgem itself, sorry, I have to say this, Bridgem has been in Indonesia for over 42 years and builds on British businesses presence that extends, in some of us actually over 100 years, so over a century. Our members are the UK's leading companies, along with leading Indonesian companies, who are influential across a range of sectors, all kinds of service industries, from energy, FMCG, healthcare, to creative economic sector. It's estimated that the British presence in Indonesia has created and now sustained over 3 million jobs. Before I end this, I wanted to introduce our keynote speaker, if I may, Pak Ahmad. Pak Ahmad Tengudin is the Deputy Coordinating Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investment in Infrastructure and Transportation. In his role, he leads the coordination in the government's infrastructure and transportation initiatives, collaborating with a variety of stakeholders. Other projects also include energy transition, foreign investment opportunities in Indonesia, and digitization projects. In his 20 years of experience, Mr. Kamudin has held senior executive roles in various industries, such as private equity, aviation services, cement production, and banking services, so with fellow bankers as well. Most recently, as Chief Executive Officer of Bukalapak, he led the fundraising for Indonesia's very own e-commerce platform to the largest IPO in the country to date. Mr. Rahmat Kemudin received his BSc in Electrical Engineering from the MIT and MBA from Stanford University. Mr. Rahmat Kemudin, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Excellencies Ambassador, friends, colleagues, everybody. So I got this invitation to say a keynote speech. I'm not very good at giving speech, as Dodi probably have seen me in some of the negotiations. But I'm typically quite good at telling some stories that goes to the point. So I will try to do a few things in this opportunity. So it's been a pleasure to have everybody here. As Doni mentioned, it's the who's who, I think, in this part of the region, talking about sustainability, a lot of expertise in the room. But what I can say also, in my experience leading the discussion negotiation for YETP and others, you cannot have enough communication and discussion. This energy transition is a very new, very complex topic, and everybody have different point of view and also have different conditions, and therefore to move forward we have to have a lot of discussion so that less friction moving forward. Maybe I would start quickly that Indonesia is very committed on this and on the energy transition, but Indonesian government actually have a few jobs that we have to do. Basically, our constitutional task, among others, is to provide prosperity and also to provide protection for our people and our home soil, if you will. And what we can say is, given the climate crisis, given the force to go to sustainable economy, I think Indonesia now is in a good place that maybe we can take advantage of both growing the green economy as well as protecting our people through going to sustainable economy. So the decoupling. One thing that we can say is, given that the world is going to energy transition, if you look at energy transition, what do you need to do? So we need to do conservation of energy. That is basically you need to do some technology on that. But you need to electrify as much as you can. You need to find alternative fuels. And maybe if you cannot find it, you capture the carbon, right? Through nature-based or maybe through technology. And arguably, Indonesia is in a good position to to do all those things. We have all these critical minerals required for electrification. We have a lot of potential for nature-based solutions, and we actually have a lot of renewable energy potential. What we just need to make sure is that we tap this and we use it for the benefit of the people and also for the growth of economy. So what currently we focus on doing? But before we go there, we also need to check where we are in Indonesia. Today, Indonesia have about 84% of the energy comes from fossil. So that is the fact. That is, our ground zero, if you will, and it's pretty common among other economies. You started with very high fossil fuel because when you start finding fossil fuel, you burn it, it's ubiquitous, it's fine. 41% of coal, 26% of petroleum, 13% gas, 4% LPG, and 16% of renewables. But if you look at those numbers, 3/4 of the fossil fuel use is only on basically three main activities: coal for electricity, petroleum for transport, and coal for industrial heat. So if we solve these problems, solve for electrification, electricity generation, for transport or mobility, and for industrial heat, well, this is the Pareto here. This is what we need to focus on, and of course, each one will require different type of technology. But if you go a little deeper, where do we believe Indonesia, should put a lot of the energy here? If you look at coal in Indonesia, we actually happen to have a lot of coal. And the coal that we generate, we produce, is not only for Indonesia. About 70% of our coal is actually exported. So last time I remember I joined the government in January 2022. That is the time when we banned coal export. I remember my boss Palut get a lot of call from everybody that says, please, please, please give me your coal. And it's kind of sometimes funny if you get also a lot of call saying you cannot use your coal. So that is a little bit difficult for us to understand. But anyway, we understand that this coal will probably be transitioned out and we need to prepare for it. But is coal the first priority that we have to do? We have to transition out? Then I think we need to discuss that. We can take a look at that. But I also want to show you the other problems that Indonesia has. Today, even after the most aggressive biodiesel program, we still import 53% of our oil that is used for transport. We spend about more than 100 trillion or about $7 billion every year to subsidize them. And it so happened that transportation sector is number 2 emission producer and number 1 of air pollution cost in Jakarta. So you export, you spend 30 billion. You subsidize, you spend 7 billion a year for something that is creating greenhouse gases and very polluting. So dollar per dollar, which one that we should do? I would argue we have to do everything, but this one is gonna give us the highest dollar impact for Indonesia. Of course, coal today we already currently working on the solution. The idea is obviously at some point we need to get away from it. But what we need to do initially is focus on the transmission, the infrastructure. And then after that, we need to focus on how can we move from coal also to renewables. Now, if I may go quickly to some of the industries that we are facing, I think the all businessmen want to see some business opportunities. If you look at EV, maybe the slide before, automotive industry is very important for Indonesia. So Indonesia today have about 150 tailpipes or 130 motorbike, 20 cars. And we are actually #1 passenger car market in terms of production and in terms of sales in the region. A lot of people sometimes say Thailand is the Detroit of Southeast Asia. Thailand actually have more production, but a lot of it is commercial. And if you speak about EV is about passenger market. So I would argue that Indonesia is a very strong candidate to be the hub for the region, especially for the right-hand drive. Indonesian government has worked very hard and also put a lot of resources to push EV industry. So we provide about 7 million rupiah for each motorbike purchase. That's about 30% of the market. Hopefully we can bring that to parity. And also we give 10% reduction through VAT that is paid by the government, 10%. So hopefully this can bring the cost of adoption to be lower. Not only that, just recently we introduced incentive program for people who just started, who want to create the factory or production capacity in Indonesia. So until 2025, the EV manufacturers who want to enter Indonesia can start with importing first, and we will waive the import duty. Sometimes it can go up to 50%, and then we will also waive the luxury tax. This is actually blended additional 15%. So let's say if the car is 100, you add 50, so 150, and then you multiply that 150 to 1.15. So blended is about 72.5% tax that Indonesian government waive for EV. The thing is that we just have to make sure that you produce domestically in 2026 and 2027. Maybe quickly, if I may, on slide 16, on the renewables, a lot of our opportunities is actually lies on solar panel. So if you want to move to renewables, Indonesia first need to build transmission. So this is where we're gonna continue asking for support, because transmission sometimes is not business viable, so we have to push that. But for us, renewable supply chain, especially on solar and battery, is required. We want to push this to happen in Indonesia, and we are actually collaborating with the government of Singapore for energy export to make sure that today we can start building solar farm while waiting for PLN, which has some challenges in the next maybe 1 or 2 years. Once we have that, we'll have a demand. Today, we already secured roughly about 2 gigawatt AC or 11 gigawatt peak of solar panel demand, plus 21 gigawatt hour of battery. So that is for Singapore alone, and we haven't really included Indonesia. So with all those things, I would argue that I think Indonesia will be a good place to invest in this. And of course, there's plenty of work needs to be done, plenty of discussion, but this is why we are here, right? With that, I'm gonna end my talk, and I'm looking forward to hear the discussion. Thank you.
So we have a presentation for Rahmad and from the team here. If I could also invite for a photo session, also a presentation for Ambassador Dominic, if you wouldn't mind joining us. If I could ask Ainsley Mann and Pat Haru, representing our consultancy board, to please join us for a photo, and also Chris Gower, representing the Bricham board as well. Yes, Ainsley. Yeah. So first to Ambassador Dominic. Jeffrey, would you mind doing the honours? Ambassador, we usually give a Bricham highly valued certificate of appreciation. We've gone far and beyond this.
I'm very kind.
And then also at first, I don't know whether our esteemed guests have actually realized at the back here we have the 75th anniversary logo. This actually is the 75th anniversary of trade ties between Indonesia and the UK. And also, rather than a certificate of appreciation, Pat Rahman, even rather than a photo freeze, which we don't have photos of you actually, we would like to present you with the first polo shirt with the 75th anniversary logo. And you will notice it's on a British Bulldog shirt. Okay, and I think that's the formal presentation. If we could just just have a photo, one more photo.
Excuse me, can we take one more photo together?
Only one more photo. Oh, one more photo. One more photo. Yeah. Okay.
One, two, three. Thank you.
So, thank you for wonderful opening remarks from our ambassador. Talked about all those elephants. No one's mentioned an elephant in the room. That's good. And also from our chairman, Pat Donny, and an excellent, enlightening, and great scene-setting presentation also from Pat Rahman. We now move into 3 panel discussions. The first of which is going downstream EV supply chain development in Indonesia. It's my pleasure to introduce you to our moderator for this panel 1. Our moderator is Raju Munusami, who is partner at PwC. Raju is partner with PwC Indonesia, the advisory, and leads the deals strategy and operations practice there. He has over 30 years experience as a strategy consultant with leading consultancy firms, as well as holding senior management roles in corporations. Most recently, he led the policy formation on the sustainable development for ASEAN Business Advisory Council as part of Indonesia's ASEAN Chairmanship. I would like now to give the floor to Raju, who in turn will introduce you to his panel.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's an honor and it's a pleasure to be here, and I'll be moderating this session. But let me invite the panel members right now. So the first panel is Bapak Gigi Kudiatmo. He's a Director of Energy Conservation at the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. Pak Gigi has been serving as a director, and also previously he was an Inspector Ketenaga Listrikan at the Director General of Electricity. He holds Masters in Engineering Project Management and a doctorate in Infrastructure Engineering from University of Melbourne in Australia. Dr. Gigi. Please. Our next panelist is Chris Gower, CEO of Altilium Group. He comes with over 40 years experience in business, started as a marketing and moved on to management role. Since 2001, Chris led a team implementing one of the world's largest environmental remediation projects. In 2016, he became the chief executive of Altilium Group, which specializes in technology that produces no harmful residues during extraction. In 2021, Chris moved to Jakarta to pursue adoption of Altilium technology in the processing of nickel ore to deliver the much needed critical metals. The third panel member is Bapak Ali Hanafia. He is the president director of Arista Group. Ari has been with Arista Group since 2017. He brings over 2 decades of experience in automotive dealership and sales, having started his career with Arista Group in Auto 2000. He has an economic degree from UISU, North Sumatra, and he leads the Arista Group for strategic vision and managerial acumen. My next panelist is Bapak Purbaya Panca. Bapak Purbaya is the CEO of Alpha. Many of you must have heard. It's a lifestyle mobility solution in the form of a two-wheeler, electric two-wheeler. Before Alpha, Bapak Purbaya held several leadership roles in a number of private equity and investment banking institutions, both in Singapore and Indonesia. Bapak Purbaya started his career as a banker. He earned his BSc from University of California and MBA from Carnegie Mellon University, USA. The last but not least panel member is Philip Y.H. Wong. Philip serves as HSBC Real Estate Finance EV Battery Sector Lead. So he monitors development and financing trends in this field. He has over 15 years of experience in project and export finance. He led numerous significant transactions as the McIntyre wind farm financing in Australia and also SK On's Gigafactory. He has a diverse portfolio. He supports clients across sectors: renewable, infrastructure, industrial, and telecommunication. He holds a Bachelor of Commerce degree from University of New South Wales, Australia. Let me give a brief introduction to this panel. I have a few slides that maybe can be shown. Yes. So what we are trying to get some answers and perspective from our panel members here is in regards to the electric vehicle industry in Indonesia. We heard from Ahmad Kamarudin about the potential itself, challenging, ambitious, doable. We'll get some of those answers. But we are also going to address some of the issues that will also, we believe that will come along with that. So yes, Indonesia has, largest nickel deposit. It has also now today largest nickel producer in the world with over 37% of the production capacity. We expect to emerge as a global downstream players, and by 2025 we will produce 3 times nickel needed for the global battery production. All this still at the background of considering nickel to be the lead material for battery, with other emerging technologies replacing nickel in the horizon. Next. So with that, I think you also saw the target to have 13 million motorcycle and 2 million cars, electric vehicles by 2030, which means that we need to have a rapid adoption, not just of the vehicle itself, but also with the ecosystem to support that. And that's why here today we have not only someone who can talk from the car industry and motorcycle industry itself, but also from financing, from upstream, as well as from the policy formulation. 1 second. Well, one thing that we have not spoken is the graph at the bottom there, the battery waste. All these electric vehicles the battery have a life, and that's going to create waste. And that waste is expected to reach 112 kiloton by 2035. And what's going to happen to that? Those are valuable materials, but also environmental risk. Next. So with that, I'm sure we have a lot of questions in mind. What's the first question, of course, what's going to happen to the nickel industry if really the other battery technology also picks up? If you are an individual, you might have asked a question, why should I buy an electric vehicle other than it's just green? If you're an environmentalist, you might be asking, where will all those EVs go? And then if you are an investor, of course, where should I, or precisely, where should I invest in the Indonesia EV ecosystem? So with that, let me turn my attention first, but maybe you can start with 1 minute introduction about what the ministry is doing, but also help us to understand what are the plans when it comes to conservation and also managing this.
Thank you, Raju. That's very fascinating. That's an honor for me to be the first comment and also in front of those experts, practitioners, and also Deputy Ahmad and also you. So when it comes to my name is Gigi Ludiano, Energy Conservation Director. This is the topic that of course, in line with what we are doing, and also from the Ministry of Energy and Human Resources. As we are in charge for various of activity with regard to the Parliament mission about how we can conserve the energy resources in Indonesia and to meet the future demand and current future demand in Indonesia, so to sustain economic growth. And also, at the same time, we also utilize our resources to address the climate change. That's what we are doing. We are, our national internal contribution has a target of 358 million dollars of emission by 2030. If I use the comparison, maybe it's around 100 million. And also, when it comes to the EV, this is our one of the key priority in our government policy, in a ways that it will help Indonesia to rely on our domestic energy resources to meet our energy demand, particularly when it comes to from the transport supplies. Because as we maybe, or if you're looking at the trend of our oil production, continuing to decline, as opposed to increase, and also by 2030, 2003, we already become net importer of oil. So that's a key important. How we address, how we reduce our dependency on oil imports. Of course, we first introduced a biofuel program in the previous years, but now we also address on how we can, because biofuel is usually for heavy duty vehicles. We rarely use biofuel for cars, so we have to find other solutions. In this case, EV is one of these solutions, alongside with the two-wheelers, because it's rather easier to replace the amount of petroleum oil used for cars and also two-wheelers with the equivalent batteries. So batteries can come from our vehicle. But Raju mentioned that how we can make it sustainable. So we have various steps to make it sustainable, like starting from how we can processing the smelters, coming from gradually lower carbon content of energy, because we would like to have our products can meet our emission demand, but also attractive enough for the international manufacturers of EV to come to Indonesia and use Indonesia as a hub for future export of EV products in the region, and also become global supply chains in other continents as well. Hopefully we can continue to combat the climate change and meet gradually the content of the carbon content constraint. But we also would like to be part of, for example, how we can, which is very good with regulation, but we have presidential regulation 79 last year, and then how we can attract investors, but we also would like to see the investor not just from Indonesian demand, but also export market. So carbon content is one issue, and another issue that we would like to address is how we can become global supply chains. For example, how we can be part of the Indonesia-USA cooperation, so IRA, for example. That's another issue that we would like to clear. And when it comes to waste conservation, that's another challenge that we have to address together, because so far we are in the early adoption of EV. And EV battery usually lasts for at least 3 years. Some product can last up to 8 years, depending on the manufacturers. Please understand that EV has the second life, that's the second stage. Hopefully the battery storage can be used to help Indonesia the second life, or to stabilize solar PI. But eventually has to be recycled and be used again. We have 3 components: electrolyte, cathode, and anode. So that's very, as Raju mentioned, this is very useful, but also environmentally challenging issue. That's it. So we haven't find what is, we are still in the early journey to go into that recycling part. At least what we can see now is we are in the second stage. We only see the opportunity to utilize this, the remaining battery life from the EV to become a battery storage for to support the power generation coming from the engine.
Thank you. Thank you, Bhaviki. Let me now switch to Chris. Chris, you come from a background in the mining industry, so this is talking about the plastic. Actually, back to that question. First one is, what do you see the challenge now in Indonesia when it comes to this critical minerals? But at the same time, how do you see a change in the industry dynamics with the emerging new technologies that will now be using lithium or nickel?
Thanks, Roger. I think the industry needs to be looked at quite holistically, because there is a very extenuating supply chain from the mine to the vehicle, and then some years later you're dealing with the batteries. And each stage, there is energy required. And I was chatting to somebody yesterday, Friday, about placing processing plants. And they were saying how it's curious that they're not looking so much at where the nickel is than where the power is. It's clear that from a Western perspective, I think the real opportunity that hasn't yet been tapped in Indonesia is to become a supplier of critical minerals to the West. That will come with some conditions on it, one of which being CO2 and where the energy is sourced from. The West doesn't like coal. I take this as a point that coal is still essential to Indonesia's economy. But if we want to tap into that market, then coal obviously needs to be taken out of the equation. But within that supply chain, we need to also remember that supply chain doesn't really exist. So we're starting from a blank sheet. And I see that as being a real opportunity for Indonesia to build something new, something which is more sustainable than any of the existing supply chains, which have largely been cobbled together. So when you start at the mine, energy requirement of the mine largely is the excavation equipment and the trucks. And electrification of that is what we start in mining. My industry, the area that I focus on, which is the processing, which is the next step in the supply chain, the extraction of the metals from the ore, is energy intensive. Solar power is not going to power the plants to extract the metals, because you're talking hundreds of gigajoules per ton of nickel to operate those plants. And the plants are getting bigger. And certainly the ones in Indonesia, the announcement of the 120,000 ton plants by you. So energy, from my perspective, the first challenge for Indonesia is to solve the energy issue. I think the immediate resolution to that problem is the expanding the gas network, because natural gas is acceptable as a power source. Expanding the gas network as quickly as possible to the areas where the minerals are found is your quick short-term solution. Longer-term solutions, geothermal, expansion of geothermal, expansion of hydro, and ultimately we all know that it hasn't been mentioned yet in terms of energy supply, but small modular reactors. I know the Indonesian government is looking at having the first reactor in 2040, but that will solve all the energy problems. You then have the waste issue. Now the waste issue is key at this processing stage. All technologies produce some waste. I'm pleased to say, as you said in your introduction, our process does not. Our process does not produce waste because we actually manage to recycle all of the acid that we use in the process, so we don't create any hazardous substances. Our residue is an inert sand with some trace fertilizer in it, so it can go back into the mine. There are other technologies being developed with that as an objective, and those are the technologies that we should begin to focus on. Currently, Indonesian ore going into the UV industry is going via high pressure acid leach plants, and the fundamental problem with those plants, they work. It's old technology, started in the 1960s. The Chinese have mastered the rapid development of those plants, but they still produce waste, and they can produce up to 1.5 tons of waste for each ton of ore processed. So you end up with a larger problem than the hole in the ground that you just dug. And that is not acceptable to the Western capital markets, following the collapses in Brazil, which have nothing to do with nickel mining as I know. And then it can be dry stacked. The end problem is dry stacking is only done in Western Australia. Western Australia has a significantly different climate to Indonesia. So once you get past processing, you've got your metals. The technology is there as to whether it goes into lithium-ion batteries, which I still believe for the foreseeable future will remain the dominant technology, simply because of their power to energy ratio. They weigh less and deliver more power. The lithium-ion batteries, which are popular in China, still don't have the range. And the sodium-ion batteries are too heavy for cars at the moment. So sodium-ion is really being designed for the stacking storage. And so I think lithium-ion, I think Indonesia is quite safe focusing on the battery metals market for their minerals. But we need to remember that each stage thereafter still uses energy. So this is why I focus on the energy, where the energy is going to come from. That's the biggest challenge for Indonesia at the moment.
Thank you, Chris. Let me move to the downstream, to the sales, and I'll ask Ali here, based on your experience and in automotive, in internal combustion, which we discussed now, electric vehicle. Looking at the target of 2 million, you're looking at 200 to 300,000 EV cars per year. What do you think the challenge, and for a consumer, what would be the biggest hurdle to switch from ICE to battery?
Yeah, thank you, Thank you, the other panelists. It's quite interesting if you are talking about the EV. It is as a car players in Indonesia, because we already, I'm in this industry already more than 30 years. So when everybody talk about the ICE and then now move to the EV, it's quite challenging. And this is like transition like a move from somebody who already eat rice and now change to another menu. It's quite like to change the culture, like changing the culture. Even though this new culture will be transitioned to in a good way to what we call it to reduce the climate problem and also to make zero emissions, even though everybody complain about the weather, complain about the climate, but they themselves they will change their car to the EV sometimes. But it is, I think, what we call very challenging. Maybe the last 5 years or 4 years ago, there is not so many players coming to Indonesia for EV industry. But starting with the hybrid, actually hybrid already come maybe 15 years ago. Actually, there is a Prius coming to Indonesia, but there is no good response also. And then CRZ Honda coming, which is the product is very good, hybrid, also have no good response. It means the market still slow. You don't care about the hybrid or what, the fuel consumption, they don't care because they still have enough money to buy fuel. So in approaching to sell EV now, I think it should be very challenging because we have also in our team, we make like a mini survey why they choose EV and why, what is their doubtness about the EV. Almost of them are answer about the infrastructure. If they use EV for certain kilometers, what next? Because Indonesia is very wide and also like 1,000 islands, and almost of Indonesia transportations need very long journey. So the range of the EV battery also becomes like a hurdle for them. But now the technology getting increased, the range is quite bigger. Now we know and also the player is coming more because many brands is coming, many models also coming to Indonesia. The last 2 years, the EV market is increased and very good response, like REV, Mowling, and also Unit at the time, Hyundai, and also now BYD is coming to Indonesia. I think it is a good chances also for us. And Arista as a dealership, we now become as the biggest EV players for this industry because we have a Wuling dealership, we have Hyundai dealership, we have also Mitsubishi, even though Honda, and also now BYD. We have another partners also for BYD in Indonesia. So I think it is very challenging, and I think we should be prepared any infrastructure, and also we should be educate the market, the customer to use and to move to the ICE, to the EV. I mean from ICE to the EV. So this is the fact for this time. All right.
Thank you, Pali. So infrastructure and educating the customers, those are the things, those are the road to the future. And of course, the incentives
Yes, of course.
to keep it competitive competitive. So let me now switch to motorcycle. 30 million motorcycles. People talk about battery swap as one of the way to do it, or a permanent one, which makes the vehicle becoming heavy. But you know, the Ministry of Industry announced that electric vehicle two-wheel battery standardization will be signed soon in Q2. So how do you think that will change the industry itself? And do you think the infrastructure that was mentioned is available for the 2 years? because of the two-wheelers are completely different usage pattern. And also understanding the Indonesian terrain is different from other places. We have a lot of hills, which means a motorcycle, especially used for carrying goods, much heavier, needing more torque and obviously then more battery power. So all these things, what do you think would be the future?
Thank you, Paraju, and it's an honor to be here with all the fellow panelists. Thank you so much for the invite. Before I jump into your questions, Paraju, maybe I'd like to relate with what Ali was saying about his experience in EVs in cars. And I think the one thing that's very much relevant to also when it comes to electric two-wheelers is what we call anxiety range. And I think this is even more permanent in the context of electric two-wheelers, whereby because of its size, it can only carry so much batteries and therefore can carry so much range. For example, in the case of Alba, one of our models could have a range up to 140 and 125 kilometers. Compare that to Air EV, let's say Woolly, which probably has about 300 kilometers. So in a way, it gives a lot of questions to potential customers as to what would happen when it comes, when they have charge. And I think to also put that in context, when it comes to electric two-wheelers, right now, I would say almost all of the models that are currently available in Indonesia and also in many other countries are actually a slow charge mode. Meaning that when you charge it at home, you need to have about 3 to 4 hours to actually charge it. Perhaps a little bit different than cars, where cars you always have that options to do a DC charge, in which case you can actually charge fast. And therefore, in electric two-wheelers, the notion of having swap batteries, because by having swap stations, you can actually swap the batteries with the batteries that will be charged in those stations. So what I'd like to sort of get to is that other than the swappable batteries business models, for which swap stations will need to be made available, and then for customers to be able to buy their electric two-wheelers without batteries. I also would like to say that one of the other solutions that could also be interesting here is actually having a network of fast charge stations. Because this is something that is already, from the technological point of view, available in cars for many years already. And therefore, perhaps the same sort of route of battling this range anxiety, which is valid for every electric two-wheelers owners, to also have an option either to have swappable batteries, swap stations, or perhaps rely on a network of fast charge stations. That will make it more convenient for customers or for riders to be able to charge their batteries at any time. And this is in the context of slow charge, where you need about up to 4 hours to have a full battery. Vis-a-vis fast charge, where maybe you can do maximum an hour to be able to go to 80%. So basically, the idea is lunchtime, and then you finish your lunch and you have actually have the batteries up and running. So I think this is something that I thought is interesting to look at, given that at the end of the day, other than of course the notion of awareness, and every cities in Indonesia have different awareness about what electric two-wheelers are. Of course, in Jabodetabek here is probably the highest in terms of awareness. But if you go to other, let's say, tier 1 cities outside Jabodetabek, the awareness goes down substantially. So awareness first needs to be brought up. And secondly, of course, battling this range anxiety will become, to us, give a lot of convenience to all of these riders who need to charge anytime. With regards to the terrains, you are right that I think Indonesia has sort of a more variety of terrains. And this is where I think the concept of electric two-wheelers not built equally apply. Because, at the end of the day, the batteries, the size of the batteries and also the motor or the dynamo will play a role as to whether electric two-wheelers will fit with certain terrains or not. Unfortunately, it's a reality, and therefore not every electric two-wheelers can actually perform, let's say, at certain degrees. Our bike can actually do up to 17 degrees, right? But not every bike can actually do that as well. So you are right that depending on what the situation is, then you will need to see whether those certain bikes will actually meet the requirements.
Yeah, thank you. You mentioned about, maybe a follow-up question was, you mentioned about, we talked about the battery swap.
Yes.
There is a belief that battery swap actually reduces the life of the battery. I think this is going back to, we used to have a handful where we remove the batteries, and that actually made the battery life less. But given all the other challenges, do you still believe that battery swap is the way to go for motorcycles in Indonesia?
Sure. That notion that battery swap will reduce the cycle of batteries, I don't think that's true. Because I believe, subject to, of course, the temperatures and also the speed of the charging, that will decide on the life of the batteries, but not the swap stations itself. So that's number one. Secondly, in terms of whether that's the right models or not, from our perspective, and when we talk about B2B, whereby you know where the routes are, and therefore be able to predict where you should put your swappable stations are. I believe that is the right thing to do. But in the context of B2C, whereby it's very hard to predict where you should put your swappable stations, that would be something that perhaps require a lot of thinking in terms of what is the optimal points of swap stations that you need to put and all of that. That would be my comment.
Thank you. Let me move now to Philip. Philip, all these things will not happen without investment, without financing. You can look at financing at the downstream, the consumer financing. Things that will happen at the moment because consumers are becoming eager to provide. But let's talk about the investment at the upstream and the midstream. So, what do you think the strategic investments or partnership potential for Indonesian corporates in this ecosystem?
Thank you. I think I will answer this in two ways. I think first is in terms of expanding the capacity and the supply chain all from the EV value chain, not just for battery manufacturing, but also for metal processing and production of the upstream cathode and nickel as well. Where would companies put investment, right? Because there's no competing countries with policies that want to attract investment. We've seen in many cases, for example, IRA, which attract massive investment into the US. And we've seen countries in Asia, such as Thailand, that's got very aggressive policies as well. So I think in this case, I think Indonesia is already doing what it's supposed to do in terms of trying to move downstream rather than just exporting ore, and rather than investing in processing, and also having policies in terms of subsidizing EVs and having tax incentives for producers and manufacturers. So I think that's certainly something that will attract investments. In terms of the second part of the question, I think what we're seeing in the EV world, in terms of sponsors, is that interestingly, the OEMs, as the auto manufacturers, they're very interested to invest and securing this topic and actually having a say in terms of how upstream is developed. I think that is sort of different to the old ICU world where OEMs are interested mainly in making cars as efficient and as cost efficient as possible. And I think this vertical integration and strategic investment is not driven by, it's not just driven by M&A deals, it's also by, from what I understand from clients, it's also from procurement teams in terms of needing to secure sufficient feedstock for the production. So, this is what we are seeing in the region in terms of collaboration between OEMs and mining companies setting up power plants, as well as the project that HSBC helped finance in terms of the Hyundai and LGDS, the first gigafactory in Indonesia, 10 gigawatt-hour factory, which is a JV between Hyundai and LGDS. So we are already seeing that happening in the market. I guess the question is like, how do we encourage more of that, and how do we attract banks and other financiers to provide financing? So in terms of the structure, what we're seeing also in terms of financing is that there's a trend towards project financing, a limited cost project financing. As a lot of these projects are very sizable, so it might not be possible for sponsors to have a balance sheet to finance necessarily. So we're seeing a trend as JV projects that they are the projects sponsors are looking for non-recourse or limited recourse financing. I think the other aspect is the role of multilaterals or export agencies in supporting these projects, rather than having just banks financing it. The addition of ECAs can help increase that as well, and because that essentially is a risk mitigation for banks to provide larger tickets and longer tenors. So we see that as very crucial in terms of driving some of these investments, and we're seeing that not just in Asia but also in multiple markets as well, like the US and Europe.
Thank you, Chris. In terms of the recycling or closed loop fund, are you hearing any client asking or planning to look into Indonesia?
I think what we are actually having more inquiries actually in Europe for these type of projects, because that's actually a government policy and mandate in terms of mandating a certain percentage of the battery minerals to recycle. So I think this kind of used to be a mandate or policy driven. And also, having sufficient EV stock on the road is important as well, because that's what provides the feedstock to these recycling plants. But I think this certainly is something that we have to develop to create a circular economy. But one point I think I want to mention is that we also need to understand the role of second life batteries in terms of after the performance is somewhat depleted for purpose of EVs, they actually can be used for ETSS, energy storage, and then go to recycling. So I think we need to remember that there's actually two markets for batteries as well.
Thank you. My time is up, but we have time for Q&A from the audience. Any questions for any of these panel members? Please start by stating your name and question to each panel member.
Okay, I'll ask.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. My name is Joel Pember. I'm from Juicebox. My question goes to more consumer behaviour adoption. Certainly, the business of EV and electrification of the economy is a big topic to handle, and I thank everyone on the panel for that. I think just with respect to, I'm an EV owner personally, so I've already made that switch. And I think what happened for me was a massive awakening in my own behavioural shift. The data that was coming back to me actually made me drive my car differently. And it's one of those things that often gets overlooked, I think, with respect to the adoption. Everyone looks at the functionality, range anxiety, those sorts of things. But what can we do as an industry or as brands to help consumers overcome some of those barriers that potentially are all utility focused or functionality focused, and we actually look at behavioral shifts in these things. So not sure which panel member that question is for, but would anyone be able to tackle, I think, that consumption or that consumer behavioral shift?
Thank you. I think that should be for Ali and for Bari. You are the closest to the consumer.
Yeah, I think this is very interesting, right? Because like I told you before, actually Indonesia government already motivate the customers and the cash users. Actually, their main aim is how to reduce the pollutions and everything. But I think the government also already make a policy that which is the regulation is very interesting and very aggressive also, that with free for the registration fee for and also for the tax and everything. That is actually only in the time matter. If it is already some of Indonesian customer actually followers. Based on the survey that more than 70% Indonesian customer is followers. Only 20% that can adjust. 10% is market needs. So that's why I think we are waiting for the 70% will be follow what we already done now and what is the customer already choose. But I think after the market is already well educated about the EV and also with the climate change and everything, it will be very fast to move for and every infrastructure already I think quite supporting, like a financial company and everything with low interest and everything to own the EV. So there is not very problem actually, but just matter of time I think. Maybe Pastor can make additional also.
Thank you, Bali. I think for us, again, going back to this awareness of what electric, in our case, two-wheelers are. A lot of people who come to our booth or our experience center, they would look at the bike, they like it, and they say, but it's a bit too expensive. Because indeed, I think the price of the electric two-wheelers before the subsidy is actually on the parity basis, on the like-to-like basis, is actually on the high side. Of course, now with the subsidy from the government, things are pretty much at par, but we need to also, again, for example, explain that the savings that you're going to get from converting to EV is actually quite massive. You're talking about the savings of 80% of the use that you get. Those are the stuff that needs to continue to be emphasized because these are the things that needs to come in the mindset of riders that okay, there's certain trade-offs here that needs to happen if you were to own actually an EV, for example. The other bit also, once you sort of go through the purchasing cycles, the next question would be, what happens if our battery dies, in the middle when we ride, for example. This is almost like saying, what if the engine of the car of ICE fails in the middle of our riding, right? It's the same thing. But somehow there's still this notion that batteries or electric two-wheelers are more fragile than the ICE cars, for example. Which is why in the case of Alba, we actually also introduced this 24-hour road assistance, for example. Again, to give assurances to our customers that they don't have to worry about batteries dying or anything, but we will actually be able to take care of them anytime, any day, of course, within the areas that we provide services, 24 hours, 24/7.
things of this nature that we believe that, as Fahri also said, the more you see on the road, the more people are comfortable that they would see this as the right thing to do in terms of switching from ICT.
Thank you. So I think short answer is get influencers. Maybe a provocative question that does not have to be answered here. But removing fuel subsidy and increasing fuel price could be another incentive for people to switch. Make it more the difference in price. But anyway, we have one more. I think time for one more question. No? Yeah. Okay. I thought we still have 2 more minutes.
I had a question.
Yeah. Let's give one more question.
Well, a quick one for all of the panelists. You've been talking about the virtues of EV. I'd like to know how many of you have actually purchased an EV vehicle. I know you have, but I don't know. Okay, not bad, 50%. And secondly, my colleague Jeffrey Damari, we're a real estate developer, and we project out where the EV market might go. One of the massive challenges for us would be a huge additional base load on buildings unless there is a significant change in the battery technology going forward. So I would like to understand, if you project 3 or 4 years forward, how do you think the battery technology is going to change in terms of the amount of time to charge, the weight of the batteries, the longevity of the amount you can drive per battery charge? This is quite significant. All the power going into the battery chargers at the moment is principally from coal-fired power plants, and it adds a significant base load to building design, unless there's going to be a step change in battery technology. So I'd like some insights on where battery technology will go.
Yeah. So I think I'll have Chris to answer that, and maybe, but we can also jump in on, if there's any policy-wise on electricity side.
Thanks, Ainsley. I have a hybrid, so I'm halfway there. You actually raised a very, very valid point, and that is, right now, if we all drove electric vehicles, we wouldn't be able to park them anywhere. Because there is a single car park in the world that's been structurally designed to take the weight of electric vehicles. They have to reduce the number of spaces that car park can hold. The same is also true many bridges. So long bridges which carry a lot of traffic. EVs are very heavy, and that is one of the problems. And to your point, Ainsley, because of that weight, what is going to happen in battery technology? Short answer is I don't know. Lithium-ion batteries, there's still the major technology right now. That technology is the lightest of the technologies. Lithium is the 3rd lightest atomic element on the periodic table. To see a movement in the batteries as currently designed, moving away from the liquid electrolyte to the solid-state battery. Again, potentially more weight because you're adding metals again. But if they're very light metals, maybe lighter. But it's not going to be substantial. And so right now, I don't think the technology is there to solve that particular problem.
Right, just a quick response from EV users experience. From my understanding that we tend to charge at home or at the office. So we rarely use the charging station, public charging station, very limited facilities. So having said that, in the coming 3 or 4 years, I would like to see, I think I would see the current technology, whether it is NMC or LFP, has a different market segments. So as a building developer, you need to think of providing EV charging facility at the building for those two group of customers. NMC experiences, I have used the EV for long range distance. I would like to charge as much as possible at home. So provide, for example, the building 7 kilowatt charging or 22 kilowatt medium charging facility that also helps. You can use it to optimize the charging network, especially when PLN giving a discount tariff after 10 p.m. 10 p.m. up to 5 p.m. in the morning.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all my panel members for this opportunity to be with you here on the stage and addressing the questions. Thank you, and I'll get back to you.
Thank you very much, Raju, and to your panel. If you would all not mind moving down to staying there. Chris Gower, representing the Bridgetown Board, it will be his privilege and honour to present you all with our certificate of appreciation. First of all, to Pak Ali. To Pak Gigi. To Philip. To Prabhaya. And to Raju for steering a wonderful discussion. Chris Gower's got far too much appreciation for Bridgetown. And then if we could have one group photo with our chairman, Donnie. Donnie, one group photo. Yeah. Okay, gents. Once again, thank you all very much. That was going downstream EV supply chain development in Indonesia. Just while we are refreshing the glasses on stage and putting some fresh glasses and some fresh bottles up, just like to remind everybody that tea and coffee and some little snacks are being served outside. So at any stage you feel the urge, feel the need, please just quietly amble to the back, help yourselves, and if you wish, bring back to your table. Once again, to remind you that these hubs are now supported by annual partners. In the case of the Climate Change and Environment Hub, we are delighted and grateful to Prudential Indonesia, to Standard Chartered, to Unilever Indonesia, to Wildlife Works Indonesia. Bridgetown has 6 other hubs: human capital and education, SMEs, technology and digitalization, smart sustainable cities, healthcare, well-being and life sciences, and each of those has 1 or 2 vacancies remaining for annual partners. If any of your businesses would like to be associated with Bridgetown hubs on an annual ongoing basis, please do have a chat with either myself or Andy. Okay, we're going to move very, very swiftly on to our second panel.
Pintunya ditutup.
We're going to move very swiftly on to our second panel. And our second panel is about accelerating Indonesia's energy transition, which is indeed a significant issue and challenge for the country. In relation to this panel, it's my pleasure to introduce you to our moderator. Our moderator is Stephen Marcelino. He is the managing partner of Equatorize. Stephen is London-based. Equatorize is a strategic advisory firm specializing in the Indonesian market. He facilitates partnerships between the UK and European firms and Indonesian stakeholders while assisting Indonesian entities also in entering the UK and European markets. Stephen himself focuses on sustainability, global health, life sciences, and digital technology. He is active in promoting Indonesia in international forums. He serves as business Sherpa for Indonesian CEO delegations at COP events. Previously, he's also held roles with Accenture and at UBS Investment Bank. Stephen chairs the Global Indonesian Professionals Association, GIPA, representing Indonesian professionals worldwide. That has been since 2019. A long-standing friend of Bridgeham and lots of what we do in the UK, Stephen Marcelino.
Welcome back after a good break. Thanks, Chris, CEO, Bridgeham. It's always good to be back. It's coinciding with my trip in Jakarta, and thanks, Jeff Chatelier, Chair of Climate Change and Environment Hub, CEO for SCABI, for inviting me, and also Pak Doni, Chairman of Bridgeham, who we're looking forward for your visit to London end of the month. We're now on panel 2, around accelerating energy transition. I still remember during COP26 in the UK, in Glasgow, when Coordinating Minister Luhut promoted the energy transition and renewable potential of up to 500 gigawatts during that time. So I'm very pleased that the latest stats from CMMIA, the Coordinating Ministry of Maritime Investment Affairs, now more than 3.3K of gigawatt potential. So certainly has, multiplied somewhat. So certainly delighted to be inviting 5 of our distinguished panelists today. One, we have Pak Edu Mahendra. He is the Special Advisor to Coordinating Minister of Maritime Affairs and Investment, Head of Technical Support Team for the National Energy Transition Task Force on Power Sector. This time I got it correct, Pak Doni. So I got it correct. At least I scored 1 point there. And also, most importantly, the man behind JETB. So he was the former head of JETB Indonesia Secretariat that was established under the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources, responsible for up to 20 billion of US dollar commitment from IPG and Javans. Also, proud UK alumni from Oxford. So let's give a round of applause. Welcome. Secondly, we have Anindita Satriasuri, VP for Energy Transition and Climate Change at PLN, the Indonesia State Enterprises Group. Let's give a round of applause. We then will be joined by Pak Edwin Wijonako, co-founder and CTO of Surya Daya Indonesia, one of Indonesia's leading solar renewable player. Welcome on stage. Next, we have the President Director of Geodipa Energy. Is one of the state enterprises under Ministry of Finance, working a lot on the geothermal side, but UDCM units. Welcome on stage. We're also joined by Prashant Hampihalikar, Managing Director and Country Head for CCIB, Corporate Institutional Banking at Standard Chartered Bank Indonesia. Let's give a round of applause. Check. Welcome to the Accelerating Energy Transition in Indonesia. recent study by Bloomberg Net outlines that Indonesia net zero opportunities represents up to 3.5 trillion investment opportunities, and energy transition plays a significant role to that. So we're certainly looking forward to hearing from Pak Edo on some of the JETP that was announced first at G20 in Bali. That was also the detailed investment plan, or sorry, the CIPP has was launched just before COP28, where grid and transmission, as Pak Deputy Rahmat outlined earlier, play quite a key part. Then I'll invite ELM to say a few words around some of the key initiatives around decarbonizing grid and the transmission. Then we'll invite some of the views from the solar renewables and the geothermal player. Then we'll certainly go to Prasant on the sustainable finance conversation, because how do we gonna finance all of this, right? That's why it's important we have a player from Japan, from Stancha, who, if I remember correctly, Prashant, is one of the only banks that presents in 10 members of ASEAN states, and one of the long-standing British banks in Indonesia. So it's some of the quotes that I always remember Pak Doni mentioned every time he spoke in London. So now then, we'll go to Pak Edo. Great to have you here, Pak Edo, it's always good. Perhaps what would be good to get a little bit of highlights on your reflections as the former head of JETP, what was launched and some of the looking ahead as you're now leading this technical working group on the national energy transition on power sector. What can we expect from JETP and the national energy transition task force?
Thank you. Thank you, Pak Stephen. Thank you, Richard, of course, for having me here. I hope this will be a useful conversation with all the attendees. Well, actually, this is the first time I took the stage as no longer as the head of the JETP Secretariat officially. So moving on to the more like supervision role, no longer the executive or CEO role, but more looking at the supervision of the JETP Secretariat work going forward together with Paramat. With the new task is actually so basically, if we want to divide, basically the work of Indonesia's energy transition. As we know, JETP is not Indonesia's energy transition. The JETP is an integral part of Indonesia's energy transition journey. So, and one of the key aspects of that JETP is basically the JETP Secretariat to deliver the investment plan. That is what we call the Conditional Investment and Policy Plan. I was launched, I think, on the 21st of November last year, if I'm mistaken. So the planning part is done. Now is the implementation part. Now, that's why for the implementation part, Parliament signed 2 decrees. The first decree is the creation of the National Energy Transition Task Force. Oh yeah, you can see that Satgas 10. So that is basically where the policy and strategic directives, policy discussions are being taken, decided, steered. Basically the chairperson for that National Energy Transition Task Force is Coordinator Minister Algo himself. And then of course you have the working group that is headed by and then 2 deputies. One is actually from the EBTKE. It's still vacant, yeah. I don't know, Pak Gigi knows better when it will be filled. The second deputy is actually from the Ministry of Finance, Pak Febri. What is the relationship between this task force and the steering committee of the contract platform? Is basically this one is the strategic policy direction. The steering committee of the platform is on the fiscal support. Yes, fiscal support, whatever fiscal facilities, the decisions will be made that that is headed by Pak Febrio, and Pak Ahmed actually a member of that steering committee. Now, there are, I mean, power sector is just one aspect of the Indonesia's energy transition. You see, there are so many things that we need to look at, not only power sector, but also, for instance, the transportation. We see that, it's basically Ms. Paramat's keynote address. Yeah? So we import it and then we subsidize, like double expenses, and while at the same time it's the second largest of the emission contributor. So those kind of things we have to look at, like the transport, and then also the industry, and as well as the building. I think I can give a personal explain about the building as well. So there are so many things, and one of the key institutional setup for the power sector is the team that is supporting work in the technical team. That was established, so that's another decree signed by Mahmud to support that the task force for the power sector. And that is actually the institution that I was asked and assigned to lead following the JETRI. And it is a natural progression because we know that we do need a very clear institutional setup with clear legal mandate, legal personality, legal standing of the institution that can bring forward the implementation of the Indonesia's energy transition in the power sector going forward. Because we know that the Ministerial does not have the mandate nor the authority to do it. So it has the mandate authority to do the traditional planning, but the Ministerial is not the asset owner. The asset owner is basically the PLN. And the Ministerial is not the fund manager. The fund manager is the counterpart for PTS. So in this house, the so-called Rumah Paten, it's not me who gave that name. The name was given actually by Pak Dirjen, by this man. By this man recommended the name because we have the TEN, Transisi Energi Nasional, and then the PNA, I think Pak Disman and Pak Didi came up with something called Perencanaan Aksi. So it's one patent. It just so happened that maybe I would like to say the word patent maybe because both of them are from North Sumatra, from Batak, so they say patent all the time, and they say let's give the name this. So this house is actually where the asset owners and the fund managers are sitting together, yeah, to do the necessary actions to make sure both pillars of a transaction, the projects and the financing to be discussed together in that house. That's why it's a joint office, that's why it's a joint house. So on paper, I have my team is based on paper, half I think of the BODs of the PLN. My deputy is Kagiri actually. And then another half is the BOD from the SME. So basically those are all from the transaction execution part. This is the house, and also for the real engineer, the bright, smart, and young staff of the PLN and the SMI are also housed there. So that we will try our best to make sure these things happen. Next slide. Yeah. So basically, normally now, people will ask where are the projects. The projects are there. We just need to make sure that these are all well communicated in a nice, easy to use, easy to access, easy to digest. I wouldn't say platform because people may confuse it. I would say it's an exchange, information exchange, where everyone can chip in. And this is also to make sure that everyone can basically find the answers of that questions. The projects will be there and will not only be a list, because a list is already in the RPPL. It's part of the business. What we need is a double click of that information, where basically the financial team, let's say a credit analyst, a credit team from a financier could do some basic preliminary analysis so that they can decide whether they would like to have a further discussion, whether they would like to join the RFP. So there is an example so that we can have a double click of that projects. And I cannot spill too many information now, but you will see then. I mean, we will start with the projects with in the PLN. Yeah. So this I already talked with all the BODs of the PLN. They're all 100%, or maybe I would say 1,000% supporting this initiative, so that this can be, I call this a one-stop gateway. Yeah. So then going forward, this would be an ideal Agora information exchange for many projects. Because when I was the head of JETRI, I also met the, let's say, representative from civil society, because then it was really an open process. And I received also criticism, which is valid to some degree, that said, hey, JetB Pyro is actually a party whereby only PT PLN and the large energy conglomerates are invited. So the community are not invited in this party, which is not necessarily wrong because many of these JetB projects in CIDP are actually large tickets, large scale. So going forward with this information exchange, we could put all the, I know, this is a beta, we have the version 1, 1.1, 1.2, yeah. But at the end of the day, everyone could join the party. Yeah, so that we basically will have compartments for both the projects, yeah. So for potential project owners, potential project developers, and potential financiers. And the financiers both coming from the international financial institutions, or also from the commercial sector, yeah, from the GFANS members and the likes, and also potentially from philanthropies. For instance, if some of the philanthropists would like to finance or scale up some community-based projects. So this should be a game changer going forward to reduce the transaction cost, the so-called, I would say, a high search cost in the Indonesia's power sector, hopefully, and everyone survived it. And this also includes for the government projects. For instance, like RE has so many projects, so this would also be a way to go. So basically, this should be a one-stop. Everyone would see this, be it from the financiers, non-financiers. This should be the acceptable. Number two, for the policy, for the other issues like the bottlenecks. That's why we have the National Energy Transition Task Force. There is led by Pak Rahmat, and this is the house where everyone can discuss many things that are potentially be the bottleneck, yeah, issues that could like impending or things that may slow down the acceleration of the business transition, like issue like local content, for instance. These are currently being discussed in this house as well. The epicentrum of synergy. We have a very active team discussion there within this national task force. So basically, that is the plan. Hopefully, this will be launched during the big event in the investment day of PT PLN. Will be early May in Bali. So hopefully, this will be a big launch there as well for this information exchange with a very nice the exchange platform, so that we have the compartments there. I already even received some financial products to be included there. So I know this is also a challenge for your company and the members of the BRIC Champ. I look forward to receive potential financial products, be project specific or generic financial product for energy transition projects in Indonesia. I already received some from Himbara. So I'm looking at Pak Prasan, biar mau kalah sama Bambang Himbara, already giving their products to me. So I think let's make this a party for everyone to basically lower the search cost. So that's the goal. I think this should be something exciting. I hope. Just wait, because we have to wait for the projects for the. I'm not looking at Pak Gigi because Pak Gigi, but once it's out there, the projects are there, and then we're going to put it there, and then we're going to have the double click information, so everyone can do the pre-RFP preliminary analysis. Hopefully, this can be a really good information exchange platform going forward, and the party for everyone, not only for PLN or the large conglomerates.
Fantastic, thank you, Pak Edo. I think it's a great natural progression for JetB Secretariat. Now you have your home, Rumah Paten, which I think in translated to English, atau dipatenkan, make it permanent, which hopefully signals also the continuity to the next administration going forward. Now we talk about asset owner. Now next to Pak Edo is Pak Adindita, VP on Energy Transition and Climate Change at PLN. So I thought it would be good to then come to you around what's PLN and sort of readiness. We heard from Pak Edo briefly around PLN Investment Day and some of the PLN plans at COP28. We heard from Pak Darmo on the newly launched AREP, PLN Accelerated Renewable Energy Development Plan that was launched at COP28. in Dubai, and we're hearing more and more on how this will be the basis for quote-unquote green energy PTL. So I would welcome to hear some of your thoughts.
Okay, thank you, Stephen. Good afternoon, everyone. Today, this is my short presentation. I will explain about the ARED. ARED is Accelerated Renewable Energy Development that we have planned to build 75% renewable energy and 25% of gas power plant until 2040. So this is a new challenge to our energy transition because next is variable renewable energy is more big than our system can be absorb the energy from variable renewable energy. So this is need the collaboration. Yeah. Maybe next for the slide. Yeah. This is the number maybe right. Yeah. Because our target of Indonesia target is 2060 for net zero emission. So we support our government to achieve that target with accelerated renewable energy. Why until 2040? Because next for 2040 until 2060 is technological is more difficult to take the view. So we have a detail until 2040, like how many geothermal, how many hydro, how many transmission. Also, yeah, in this our scenario until 2040 is more than 10 gigawatt of geothermal and to 20 gigawatt of hydro, and also 8 gigawatt of variable renewable energy like wind. And for the solar until 2040, we have planned about 24. Yeah, the total of renewable energy until 2040 is 28. Yeah, this is a new challenge to PLN. To we collaboration also with PAEDU and other institution to achieve that target. Maybe this is a short of from PLN.
Thank you. We'll come back to you later on around how you're planning to achieve, because I think this is more of a how question, right? I mean, there is a clear direction plan on the conditional planning, JETP, Secretariat, and also the overall Indonesia Energy Transit Plan. I think PLN is quite ambitious with the ARED that was the plan, so we'll come to Bakrasa later on. But you touch on solar renewables and geothermal. Now, our next distinguished panelist is Pak Edwin Wijonarko, co-founder and also CTO of Surya Daya Indonesia. Welcome, Pak Edwin. Why don't you share a little bit about what Surya Daya Indonesia is doing, and what sort of pipeline you're looking at on the overall energy transition story, please.
Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Edwin. I am from Surya Daya, Indonesia. Most people like to know us as rooftop solar developer. I would prefer to call ourselves a solar energy solution provider. So we are not just like a developer, like most other developers, but we also do some other stuff. We put a little bit more emphasis on technology development. We also put a lot of emphasis on operating and distributed solar assets all throughout Indonesia. So this is not this specialization is something that we do out of necessity. And I'd like to share a little bit of our journey back from 2018 to now, and hopefully can inspire you to be bold in investing in renewable energy in Indonesia. So back in 2018, we saw that the opportunity to start a solar business in Indonesia. We saw that the price of the solar system was going to reach a grid parity at around 2018. And so we started Surya in 2018. We started to address the common problems from back then, namely there are two. One, from the technical side, there have been a lacking of, a technical savvy For example, like the wrong design or like improper design, like the components that are not intended to be used in a tropical climate with like a very high humidity and lack of like operational maintenance. That was like back in 2018. The second problem was renewable energy is inherently a high capex with like a very long-term like investment. A lot of people simply like not ready for like a 25-year investment, 30-year investment, and like they are not ready to like buy equipment that's really expensive, although it's only becomes of the size of your HVAC system. So we try to address this by like introducing like our engineering, like our own experts in engineering, and then like we also the first one to like provide a solar system rental in Indonesia, just to address like people's perception that solar is expensive, solar is risky because it's a long-term investment. And of course, we have also introduced a operation and maintenance. That's not just maintenance. A lot of people, like when they say operation and maintenance, like energy assets in Indonesia, focus on fixing stuff, corrective maintenance, or like just preventive maintenance. They often forget that there are a lot of other operational aspects that goes into this. So we do like all this for. We do the rental, the engine design, of course, and we do the QC and the commissioning. We focus on like the operation and maintenance, all of them because of necessity back in 2018. And that's why, like we said, like we are more than just a developer. We focus on the technical aspects as well. How is it now in like a 2024 or like after like a 2023? Well, we're glad to say that, like you can see in the next page, by 2023 we have been trusted by more than 100 companies in Indonesia to like help them with their effort to go green. We have like more, we have like systems all across Indonesia over like 11 provinces, and we are still keep adding more to that. So I think like one thing that I'd like to emphasize to like the people who are interested in investing in renewable energy in Indonesia is that things have changed since 2018. For me, as someone who has worked in this sector for like 5 years, it was hard back then in 2018. People's like knowledge about like the system was really hard. Awareness for like how necessary it is to like go green was like really low. Things changed a lot, especially during COVID. People are now more aware of like renewable energy technologies. People are more receptive into becoming green, and we can see that like from our clients who are more like a humdrum or like more excited about like going green. And of course, we see like efforts, say like even like from PLM, where it has like 100 megawatt in Chihuahua, or like from like Pertamina, who has like 20 megawatt in Rokan. Things have changed a lot. And I think like comparing with like other countries, we've had like stable growth. Indonesia as a country as a whole, we have stable growth. We have quite strong growth, and this is important. That means that we need more energy. I think it is a very unique opportunities for Indonesia to not just increase our GDP per capita, increase our wealth, but increase our wealth using like renewable energy development, energy transition as a backbone. I think it's an exciting time for me. I hope like it is an exciting time for all of you who are coming here. Please invest in renewable energy in Indonesia. Thank you.
Thank you. I agree. And I think that's aligned with our themes today around Indonesia future as a sustainable investment superpower, right? I think it's great to hear some of your solar renewable journey from a few years back. Now I'd like to invite Pak Yudhistira Yudis, President Director of Superpower Energy, to share some of the geothermal exploration and opportunities that you see in the market.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen. Ladies and gentlemen, we at Geodipa Energy as the SOE, as also we do some special mission vehicle under Ministry of Finance actually. So when we're talking about the geothermal, of course, in Indonesia, the energy price is a really critical point for our people here in Indonesia. Then that's the reason why the PLN is always asking the least cost for energy price or electricity price, something like that. And then that's the reason also why the geothermal is not have to prioritize for developing or to fulfill our needs, because the price of development is relatively high. Then one of our tasks as a SOEY, how we could promote the geothermal development more economic in numbers of ways, and then also how we could answer the energy affordability price for the peoples. That the one of our field to fulfill the RUVTL that is already set by Ministry of Energy. Even that one's done by PLN, but that the Ministry of Energy for us. Then Indonesia is really blessed with that kind of geology situation we call as the ring of fire country. Then we have around 23 gigawatts potentials, and then we just developed only 10% of it. And we have the second biggest geothermal developer now in the world, but we willing to do more by also more active participate in the transition energy. Then there are four components that how we optimizing the geothermal. Actually, the developer as we do, and then the government how they regulate the how the developer do, and then how the environment, something like that, and social governance. And then also the off-taker like PLN, who always asking the least cost to all the power producers. And then the others that kind of university research center and so on. From our perspective, actually, the geothermal development technology and scientific is relatively quite far behind the oil and gas industry, actually, because they relative really slow to develop in terms of the technology and then scientific. That's the reason why now all over the world try to figure out how to de-risking the explorations, then also how to optimize the geothermal itself from the heat extractions, doing for power plants, and then also for agriculture and so on, in terms of how we monetize all the enthalpy what we got in our geothermal fields. That's one of the reasons how we try to lowering our development cost in geothermal, that makes geothermal more have the prioritized to develop. And then with the geothermal model transformation right now, we in Geodipa, actually when we start the geothermal, just doing kind of development, only try to find the steam and then extract, separate the steam from the brine, and then put into our turbines and then produce electricity. Now we also think how we could utilize also the brines, the hot water from our geothermal wells. It's really quite really interesting right now. In in numbers of the geothermal area like in Europe or in America, they could use the brine or hot water to come for district heating, but we stay in the tropical regime, then there is no point for district heating in Indonesia, right? But we try to utilize our heat to kind of like the heater or dryer, something like that we could also monetize the powers. And then we just in the last 2 or 3 years, we found more interesting in how we utilize or develop the brine actually. When we see the kind of chemical content in our brines, that consists the numbers of minerals that we can also monetize also as probably we could also answer the session, the first session that talking about the EV, we also got kind of the silica. Probably silica is useful for the raw material for solar PV, something like that. And then we also have the lithium from our brine. And then due to our development currently, we develop around 55 to 110 megawatts. We could produce also the silica around 8,000 tons per year by brine. And then also we could also produce the kind of lithium around 2,000 up to 3,000 tons per year. That's probably more interesting for geothermal development than for government. If we talking about the full scale of geothermal development, it will be good for the people to get more price affordability on the electricity. That's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Yusuf. It's an exciting development of the geothermal. And we move on to Pak Prasan Pihalika, the country head for CCIP Islam Chart Indonesia. We need to get your thoughts on some, maybe one key opportunity and one key challenge in mobilizing sustainable finance to green projects in Indonesia.
Thanks.
And we'll invite one maybe question from you.
I just saw 3 minutes being flashed there, so maybe I'll keep it quick. But I think clearly, I think in terms of opportunities, there are many. There are significant opportunities in transition. Indonesia is, it's not just renewable energy, but it's also geothermal, it's hydro. But more than that, I think there is, for the transition to be successful, there has to be investments happening in transmission, grid infrastructure, and also decommissioning of coal-fired power plants. So it's actually, we have to look at it not just as an individual solar or wind project, that's just a small portion of it. And which is where I think PAERO and the CIPP has played a big role. They have clearly mentioned which are the different projects, but more importantly, they have said where do we need what kind of financing. And what I mean by that is where is it commercial financing, where do we need blended financing, where we have philanthropic or multilateral institutions coming in, and what needs to be funded purely by grants. So I think that clarity is something that I don't think too many countries have given to the developers. So to me, that's a big differentiator. So to me, the opportunity is, like I said, in multiple sectors. The challenge is what we are doing here is first of its kind, which needs a lot of players to play their part. So even if JETP Secretariat were to do what they wanted or the banks needed to do, we needed PLN to play a part. PLN has an objective of providing cost-effective power to the people of Indonesia, and today they get coal, which is subsidized, for want of a better word. So how do we then compare renewable energy with what their cost of production is today? So I think the challenge, and also the other thing to note is we are not just competing within Indonesia for this capital. There are neighbors of ours, whether it's Philippines or Vietnam, who are also looking at the same projects, whether it's renewable energy, whether it's decommissioning, and then there are potential sources of revenue that are coming from carbon credits. which are still not we still have to have a mechanism of what carbon credits are going to be used for Indonesia against the NDCs, what can be exported out, because clearly we can get a lot more value per ton of CO2 if we are able to export it or take part of these carbon credits into other markets. So I think the challenge is to get different pieces of jigsaw together. You will not have all the answers before you start, and hence I think the way government of Indonesia and Pak are doing it is that we are starting project by project, because I think the more you do, the more you will learn, and then the next project will be better. So I think we are going to do trial and error for first few projects. There are going to be delays, or there are going to be learnings which then go into creating the scale that is required in terms of the financing required for the entire transition. So I think in a nutshell, we as Standard Chartered clearly have, we believe in just transition. We are sure that one size can't fit all. Emerging markets have to have different paths to net zero than developed markets, and they need to have different sources of funding. So we are committed to $300 billion of funding for energy transition by 2030. I think we'll reach about 75 billion by end of this year, and we are looking forward to working very closely, not just with the developers, the fund managers, but also multilaterals to create the best financing structure that can achieve our goals.
Thank you, President. That's a global target, right? 300 billion.
300 is global, but we don't have country specific, so first come, first serve. If we can, and the idea given Donnie is here, is we need to have Indonesia contributing a large part of ASEAN, if not Asia at least.
Fantastic, thank you. Well, we'll open up for questions. Apparently, I've been reminded we still have. We have 10 minutes for Q&A, which is great. So prepare some of your questions. We want to encourage both, equal gender side, if that's okay. And I don't want to mention, but I didn't have to go soon. So, if you have some solid questions, come. But yes, please. If you can mention your name and.
Hello, my name is Benoit Prin. I'm from Indonesia. We are a solar developer like Edwin. I have a question for Pak Andy from PLN. One thing that have been kind of delaying the uptake of the renewable energy in Indonesia is the fact that there is oversupply of electricity compared to demand. That's what have been cited late over the years to tell us that there is no need for more energy on the grid. Do you have please an update on where this is at and when this gap is going to be resolved? Please.
Thank you, Benoit.
Okay, thank you. I will explain about the oversupply, especially in Java. Indonesia, PLN has 5 big systems, so from Sumatra, Kalimantan, Java, and Sulawesi. So the oversupply is only in Jawa Bali right now. But after COVID-19, the growth of the demand in Jawa Bali is more than 5%. So until 2018, the oversupply can be minimal. So after 2018, there is no oversupply. But right now, some big project of thermal power plant is getting finished. So after that, the demand is increased. So we have calculation about the oversupply is finished until 2018.
Edwin, do you want to quickly comment on the oversupply, what you see outside of Java Valley, and if we have to move on?
Maybe not. I'm not part of PLN, so I don't know anything about it.
If you like to bid in the future soon, that's why you want to come to PLN Investment Day. Maybe early May, next questions.
Good afternoon. My name is Ivan Kolompis, Asian Public Policy graduate from UCL. I'd like to ask about the public policy and economic side of Indonesia's energy transition. To any panelists who can answer this, it doesn't matter which panelists will be ready to answer. The first question is about when the current global geopolitical landscape is really turbulent. That means the prospects of energy transition in the emerging markets, including us, Indonesia, is getting really difficult. Even His Majesty's ambassador says that energy transition remains a challenge based on the latest report card regarding COP21 impact, regarding the COP in Paris. I've got number, apologies. So how could the JETP task force manage to mitigate the short-term and longer-term challenges to Indonesia's energy transition, especially with the current issue related to international geopolitical rivalries, especially with the refusal of certain sources of origin or certain technologies in energy transition? I think that's my question. I think it's a bit long.
Thank you. Yes, I think that's a pretty good one question. Maybe Pak Edu would be best placed to talk about the geopolitics and energy transition. Maybe Prasan, if you want to come next, perhaps on how the global view.
Okay, so one thing, yeah. So JETP is basically just G7 plus Denmark plus Norway plus the European Union, and then plus the 7 banks of the members of the G10 system. So, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's basically just some chapters of Indonesia's energy transition journey. So, and I'm sure these are maybe some of the most exciting chapters, but it's not the complete full book. So that's why we have this. Now, about the challenges will always be there, no matter what kind of. Maybe next year the issue is the less of interest rate, maybe another issue. Yeah, different things. I mean, global challenges will always happen, no matter what. Yeah, it's just the type of the changes differ from time to time. So what we know for sure is basically number one. That's why we need to have Indonesia's transition, because JETP is just some chapters. So we need everyone to be able to contribute, to play significant role in this Indonesia's energy transition journey, because we need a lot. So the CIPP estimates that by 2030, if we want to follow the JETP trajectory, we need at the very least 97.1 billion. So even JETP is only 20 billion. So even if we put everything, it's more sufficient. Number one. Number two, we need lots of transmission. I haven't touched about that yet. But all this rapid uptake, we need transmission. And this is where normally you have market failure. Yeah, because of the risk profile that might be a bit too high for market, and the return profile that might be a bit too low. So there is a quite significant risk of underinvestment, market failure due to market failure. So these are some of things that actually initiatives like JETP is one of those initiatives should put really their focus on. Because all the other things, the most important part is to put what the projects are, and then make sure that we have a very effective procurement process. Yeah, those two, if we can fix that internally, then we can take off. But we can't take off if we don't have the basic for it. That is basically the transmission. And this is where I think not only JETP, but also many other countries that have this potential of the concessionary financing, they should put their investment there as well, allocated, discussed with the National Energy Task Force, the country platform, of course with both the asset owners and fund managers in this case, so that we can not only expand, but also upgrade. Otherwise, we cannot accommodate a rapid uptake of the variable RE. And we need everything. I think Andit mentioned 28 gigawatts of solar. VRE. And many of those will be basically VRE is solar and wind. Yeah, solar and wind. So we have to make sure that all these are made. And the issue for me, everyone is invited. Indonesia is always friends with everyone. So everyone is invited. We have JETP. We could have, we do have many other LNS MOUs as well with non-JETP countries which may be bigger than Japan. So it doesn't matter as long as it can contribute to the Indonesia's energy transition. Doesn't matter what the color of the cat is, as long as it can actually look nice and cat are nice.
Good analogy. Pak Prashant?
Yeah, so I think Pareto did touch upon it. So I think there are a couple of things. That if you look at geopolitical thing and what is required for energy transition, I think the overlap is pretty limited. The areas where we have wars and everything are not necessarily the biggest suppliers of raw material for the transition. However, I think one of the things that the government of Indonesia has done really well is they are very non-aligned. They are trying to basically see what's best for the country, whether it comes from one superpower or the other. I don't think they're taking any sides. At least as an outside-in person, I find that remarkable. Also, in some of the sectors that we are talking about, whether it's PV cells, whether it is some of this technology, a lot of it, global production is actually China-centric. And if you look at the investments that have come into Indonesia over the last 10 years, a large part of that is coming from China. So I don't see that as a challenge. In fact, what again the government of Indonesia has done is use the opportunity of export of renewable energies into other countries as the baseload demand for those industries to come in and also have high level of domestic content requirement. So I think the way I look at it outside in is we've used the resources, the non-alignment very well. We are creating value addition within the country by using the demand outside as well as internal, and that will only enhance the per capita growth of Indonesia.
Fantastic, thank you, Prasad. And I think to that note, unfortunately, we have to close the Q&A because I've been reminded that we just ran out of time, but thank you for some of the key questions. And just in conclusion, before Chris hand over to the next panel, just allow me to thank our distinguished panelists. Let's give a round of applause, everyone. This is a great opportunity for this to have as the head of the technical support team for the National Energy Transition Task Force, Rumah Paten, which that hopefully shows a bit of permanency and continuity that JETP that will be translated in the next steps. And thanks for PLN, as well as Surya, Kirti Pak, as well as Tan Chapatan, who's been a great panelist for today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Stephen, for wonderfully marshalling your panel. Gentlemen, if you wouldn't mind just staying on the stage there, we'd like to offer you a sign of appreciation from Bridger. And if I could ask Pat Donny, if you wouldn't mind, to pass out the certificates of appreciation to our panelists. And we will go in the order the panelists spoke. So if we could begin with Edo. Thank you, Pak Doni. Pak Edo Mahendra. Anindita. Anindita, thank you very much for joining us. And he will be followed by Edwin. And Yudhisthira.
Thank you so much.
And last and by no means least, actually penultimate. Oh, you guys know each other, do you?
Barely.
Would you like to say which bank you're both from?
The blue and green side.
The blue and green. Thank you very much, Pat Donny and Stephen Marcelino.
Thank you so much for joining us, and of course, great.
So if we could have one photo of all our panelists, our moderator, Pat Donnie, together. And Jeff.
One, two, three. Thank you.
Okay, my team have asked me to keep this moving reasonably quickly, so they just need a little bit of time to get the water and the glasses switched over on the stage. And while they're doing that, once again, it's a great honor to be able to thank sincerely the Prudential Indonesia, Standard Chartered Bank, Unilever Indonesia, Wildlife Works Indonesia for being the annual partners of the Climate Change and Environment Hub. I'd also like to take this opportunity of reminding you that this actually is a very busy March. Tomorrow, March the 5th, we have the Professional Women's Hub. So those of you among us that have an interest in retail, empowering and elevating women in business, then you are welcome to Sarina. That's tomorrow afternoon. And again, the team will be very happy to give you more detailed information. On March the 6th, Wednesday, at the Oakwood in Megacriminan, the Technology and Digitalization Hub offers digital technologies in education, particularly focus here on topics of ethics, of AI, and the integration of AI in education. March the 19th, the Healthcare, Wellbeing and Life Science Hub offers a very, very topical insight into fasting and the issues of productivity during the fasting month. That's March the 19th. On March the 21st, our Smart Sustainable Cities Hub offers an event looking closely at ESG. More details of the latter two will be available very, very shortly, but for those events tomorrow, the Professional Women's Hub and also the Technology and Digitalization Hub, please do have a word with Rich and team and take the opportunity of scanning the QR code at the front to secure your I think we are more or less ready to carry on. There is still tea and coffee for those that would like to keep themselves lubricated in that way for now. To remind you, after this next panel and closing remarks, you are all invited to join us for a buffet dinner and also some drinks, which includes some wine, beer, cocktails, no wine, beer, cocktails, gin and tonic, how's that one? Yeah, mozzarella, yes, something, all right. Okay, and that will be our final. So then, it gives me great pleasure to move to panel 3. This is Indonesia as a global hub for carbon markets. Jeffrey Chatelier will be leading this panel. To remind you, he is the CEO of Forest Carbon, he is the chairman of the Brickchat Climate Change and Environment Hub, and has 15 years or so direct experience relating to conservation, finance, forestry, and sustainability in Southeast Asia. Over to you, Jeff.
Ngobrolin dong biar pada duduk.
Good afternoon, everybody. The next panel will be discussing Indonesia, global carbon markets. And I'd like to get everyone's attention as I introduce the great panel that we have. And first, we're going to start with Pak Dano Supotro. He is the CFO of Pertamina Hulu Energy Subholding Upstream. Prior to this, he was the CEO of Pertamina New and Renewable Energy, and he was also a policy advisor for the B20 in 2022, where he worked to craft ambitious energy policy, ensuring accessibility, affordability, and sustainability of energy in Indonesia. He is dedicated to supporting Indonesia's energy transition by building a portfolio of renewable energy in the future. Thank you, Pak Daniel. Next is Ibu Via Azlia. Ibu Via is a researcher at CSIS Indonesia Climate Policy Unit. It specializes in environmental economics and policy, focusing on climate change, low carbon, circular economy, and natural resources. She promotes evidence-based decision-making for environmental sustainability and social justice. Next, we have Pak Lufaldi Hernanda. Pak Lufaldi is currently the director of the Department of Financial Derivatives and Carbon Exchange and Supervision at OJK. With previous roles as Director of Digital Assets and Supervision at OJK, and as the Director of Solesser Indonesia Industry and Environmental Consultancy, Pak Aldi brings extensive experience in finance, energy, mining, and manufacturing. His expertise and leadership contribute to driving effective strategies and oversight in these industries. Next, we have Pak Darsono Hartono. He is the CEO of PT Rimba Makmur Utama, which operates the Katagan Mentaya project, the largest peatland restoration project in the world, which generates 8 million triple gold certified carbon credits annually. He is also the permanent chair of the ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Markets and chairs the Indonesian Chamber of Commerce and Industry Net Zero Hub. Thank you. And finally, we have Ridwan Kurniawan. He is the country representative for South Pole in Indonesia. With a focus on energy and carbon policy, Ridwan supported various ministries in developing regulations in the power sector and carbon markets in Indonesia. Recently, Ridwan is part of the methodology writing team for early coal decommission transition, carbon credit, and delivered a training on carbon pricing policy and introduction to carbon markets for policymakers in Indonesia. Let's have a round of applause for our panel. I'd like to start things off with a question for Pak Danif. I wanted to ask how Pertamina is preparing and also potentially participating in carbon markets. And then also, where does the company see the opportunities in this emerging carbon market here in Indonesia?
Thank you, Jeff. First of all, thank you for having me. I guess Pertamina hasn't, we started as an oil and gas company, but we look at ourselves as an energy company. In this energy transitions era, we're looking at the carbon market, right? As part of the overall energy transition strategy for us. I guess, as you know, we are full value chains. We are still doing the whole value chains of oil and gas from upstream, doing refinery, and then downstream marketing, shipping. We also have PGM, which is basically the gas infrastructure and trading company, and also the renewable energy. I mean, we are looking at it from overall value chain, Jeff. I guess on the one that the biggest opportunity or potential, right, on carbon is there are two basically, right? One is related to our business, which is on the carbon sequestration, right? Obviously, this is, as is, real, this potential to sequester the carbon, right, and store it into the either the Pacific Basin or the Southern Aquifer. Indonesia, we have a feasibility study done by the party also internally. Maybe have one of the largest potential possibility for carbon, right? numbers is still early, but could be as big as 3.5 gigaton in several locations. Some is distributed and so forth, some is actually selling equipment. That is one, but still in the future, as you know, the technologies of capturing, transporting, and injecting is still in progress. Right? There's some example in Norway, in Eastern Europe, I'm sorry, in Northern Europe, right? We are looking into this. This is one of the potential, big potential. The other big potentials on carbon market is related to forestry lands. As we are one of the largest land for forestry, I think we have all the expert here. Right? This one, Pertamina through Pertamina New already participated. Right? We actually the one who sold the carbon credit through IDX from our project, Geothermal, right? Has been validated as application as Sari from Kanaka, which is also based on the method. This is also big potential, either from project like Geothermal technologies or through land-based. So, and again, on the land-based, on the NBS, Natural Solutions, we have announced we have agreement for business arrangement with Prodan, which hold large land bank, right, to convert some of the business from working into NBS. So those are the two potentials business related to carbon innovation.
Thank you very much. That's very interesting to hear those points. I'd like to move on to Indonesia. With a focus on policy, I wanted to ask you about Indonesia's carbon tax. This tax was proposed a few years ago, but was delayed. And I want to hear, how is this tax going to be used, and what are the implications for the carbon markets once it's introduced?
Thank you for having me, Mr. Jeff. So yeah, carbon tax, as we know, is being delayed until 2025 or around that, and it has impacted to Indonesia's plan especially for energy transition, because it's been pivotal for the implementation previously as a cap and tax, and now it's more like cap and trade, but more like functionally, because like the implementation is being delayed, and it has impacted the market itself, because the market on the demand side, if we look at the carbon market itself, the price currently is on the price discovery phase, which is impacted by supply and demand. But if we see that current carbon market or carbon tax is not being implemented yet, we can see from the demand side it's been quite low. So then the price is still quite low, around like $4 US, and that is not going to be effective for the implementation of carbon market itself. Because as we know, as carbon market is driven by market, the government also cannot have like control of it. It is different from the carbon tax. If carbon tax was implemented, the government can control it. The government can control the prices, but the market is kind of different. So the role of carbon tax is actually to boost the price discovery and also boost the demand of carbon market itself. So it's kind of correlated, and it is also important actually to see the implementation of carbon market itself, because we need to also be really careful, because market is very dynamic. So for example, the delay of carbon tax will impact the carbon market, and for example, like that's why the demand for Indonesia is quite low until today, and It is actually related to the discussion of Indonesia as global carbon market. It is also important to see that the demand is not only can come from Indonesia, but also can come from international cooperation. So from my side, if the current implementation is not being boosted by Indonesia's domestic demand side, we can also push from international side, and that can boost the demand and then can boost the price, current market prices. Maybe it will not be as high as global carbon market prices, but it will be, it can be higher than current carbon market price, because that will drive the behavior of business to transition to more low carbon economy or cleaner technology. Because if the prices are not high, it will not incentivize business to transition, and it might cause the we're stuck in kind of like business as usual. So like the price is very important, and yeah, that's just like a policy perspective. If we look at the market itself, we can see from the international side on the corporations and so on. That's from my side.
Thank you very much. As we start talking more about carbon trading, it's a good segue for our next panelist, Pak Ali. In September, the carbon exchange was launched, and roughly 450,000 credits were transacted. A number of state-owned banks participated in the purchase of those credits, and they came primarily from one project, I believe, geothermal energy. And since then, not much transactions have taken place. They virtually stopped. How do you see the carbon exchange growing? What types of credits will be allowed, and which type of actors will be able to participate in this exchange? Will it be isolated just to domestic players, or will international players also be allowed?
Oh, thank you, Jeff. It's straightforward and very good question, though, and also sensitive question. So, first of all, if we are saying that, I would say the insights, for from the beginning of the launching of the carbon exchange, some people saying, it's still shallow, and demand it's not that big, But think about if we compare to the, for example, Malaysia, and also the other some regional, in the countries in the regional, where they were setting up the national carbon exchange, but they didn't really have the transactions. So I would say zero transactions. So in some points that we have to be proud of ourselves, the Indonesia is, to be honest, one of the success countries in the region. So just FYI, during the launch, we were the biggest country that during the launch we successfully did a very big amount of transactions compared to those countries. They're setting up the same thing, but they didn't really show up the so that's number one. But that's if you compare to the existing one, yeah. But if we are seeing the future and then the target, like gigatons, of target, of course we are like super far away, from the ideal market situation, But among the regulators, when I'm saying the among the regulators, the OJK, the KLHK, the SDM, and all the regulators, we've been working so hard to guys, to go to the ideal market, So then the investor and all the global can see, the projections of the Indonesian national strategy, when it comes like the net zero. Yeah. So two perspective. And somehow we are still shallow, but in some points we are, can be, also proud of ourselves. Yeah. And then in terms of the journey, we are on the progress, and I just heard, the issues related to the tax and also the international trading, I think we have to be very specific on that, particularly on when it comes like international, because just to clarify, in Indonesia we have two type of market, which is mandatory and then the voluntary. Yeah, and if we are discussing about voluntary, yes, you want to go for international tourism, and I think in the second, among the regulators, we've been working so hard, and then just a couple weeks ago, we decided to try to go international this year. That's good news for all of us. But of course, there's always pros and cons. There's always challenges, and then I think we need support from all the stakeholders. But at least all among the stakeholders can see the positivity of the future Indonesia. Go the 2060, the net zero, or earlier. So I think that's the update from us.
That's a very promising update. It's great to hear that OJK is looking to also promote voluntary markets and sales credits overseas.
This is a very quick addition. Just this morning, if you guys also noticed that in St. Regis Hotel this morning, Road to Net Zero, we just launched the guidance. And then I think 7 big banks and Indonesians committed to net zero. And but however, we understand the scope 1, scope 2 from bank itself is probably very small compared to the general industries. But at least from the banking side, we want to also echoing the same perspective to the whole ecosystem and the financial sector. So it's a very ambitious target.
Okay, thank you for that update. Sitting next to you is someone who has a project that produces millions of carbon credits for the voluntary market. But I think I'll ask him a question a little bit different outside of the normal questions that he gets on panels. I'm interested in your role in Kadin as the chairman for the Net Zero Hub. And Pak Ali was saying a couple of major banks have made commitments to net zero. How is Kadin working to promote carbon markets in Indonesia through this entity? And then also, what is the opinion of the members of Kadin around carbon markets and commitments to net zero?
Thank you, Jeff. It's great to be here. And those are the tough questions. If you ask about my company question, I can answer much easier. But basically, I was assigned in Kadin as 2 roles. First is the chair of the Kadin Net Zero Hub. The idea of Kadin Net Zero Hub was actually started in Glasgow, where we say that for Indonesia to be competitive in the new world, we in Kadin need to decarbonize members. So we're looking at a very specific task. How can we help our members, especially the one that is basically labor intensive, such as the garment, the shoes, because we saw that the brand in the world are going to demand net zero eventually. So we started this program called the Corporate Assistance Program. We help the company to decarbonize. We do as simple as how they can calculate their greenhouse gas emission, because how can you decarbonize when you don't even know how to count, how to calculate, right? So we have about 80 members now on that role. That's like the net zero. So the net zero is about helping, looking at the demand side and how we can actually identify, decarbonize, and hopefully at the end, we also think that they need to offset, right? Then my role as the chair of the Carbon Center of Excellence is providing that opportunity to work, with a company who wants to be a supplier of credits. Basically, making sure that the high integrity, high quality credit in place. That's what I do in Indonesia. But since last year, as Kadin, we actually chair ASEAN. I was given a bigger role now, not in Indonesia, but ASEAN level, which is, I think, definitely more strategic from a carbon market perspective. Because I think what we see today, a lot of people are struggling in carbon market because there is no compliance market yet. what we see in the voluntary carbon market is there's a lot of negative views, a lot of things that they said. I mean, not just from regulation, uncertainty, but even from a market perspective, international. I'm not talking about Indonesia. While we see a lot of challenges still ahead, but in the world, people are start questioning: are these carbon credit real? I'm sure that you've read a lot of report from the company next to me that is very popular in that report. But I think you need to educate, right? I think if just like any other product, if there are 100 companies are doing it and they have 10 or 20 that are bad, doesn't mean that the whole industry is bad. So I think the reason why we started AACM, which is ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Market, is you want to galvanize ASEAN. So some of you are not familiar. There's a study being done saying that ASEAN might be able to produce 30% of the world carbon credit, 30% as a region. And Indonesia can contribute 60% of the 30%. So I think it's a key role for Indonesia to actually play and well to be contributing to this point. So we started this, we launched the ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Market last year during our chairmanship. And now we actually get a lot of members looking to have interested looking at those lenses. Just looking at sharing, a platform and sharing experiences of what is a good high quality and project. Looking at policy across all the ASEAN region and how we can work together. Because I think that there's a gap of that compliance money, right? Somebody needs to do, and I think what we are excited about is every time we go, we talk to the ASEAN members, they also feel that the needs to have these private sectors. And then when we talk to other countries, our dialogue countries, ASEAN, like the China, the Japan, and Korea, they say that we're interested to buy credit from you. So I think this is very important while we are actually, you feel like, I don't know if you're actually watching Game of Thrones, some of you are Game of Thrones, like you feel like one piece is all together, eventually you will become a big thing. So I think what we are hoping is with ASEAN, with Indonesia, I think particularly in this region, is trying to put a whole ecosystem of a good, high integrity carbon market. Of course, people always talk about nature-based solution because in this region, apparently, it's the most popular. I mean, give you a little background. When I started my project about 17 years ago, nature-based solution is the least popular project. Everybody was doing solar, everybody's doing wind, everybody's doing all this renewable, and then suddenly in the past 5 years, things flip. Right? But I think Indonesia has a lot of those prospects. I mean, you talk about opportunity, geothermal, like Pak Danit mentioned. We have solar, we have a lot of things that we can sell to the world as a carbon credit project. So I think, we are looking to recruit more members in our ASEAN Alliance on Carbon Market. This year, we have a few programs that we have in place. And I think, with hopefully the new government coming in, I think there's a lot of, in the region, there are a lot of new leaders coming in ASEAN as well, and we're happy to work together with that. So the idea is to create our own region carbon market for ASEAN. Because, what a lot of people don't understand is the West might ask for certain things that they see in their own lenses. But I think ASEAN have to have their own rules. We cannot say that, if the Western people said, oh, those are not good enough, it might be good enough for us. Right? I think there's a lot of issues that we don't understand. I think the market is so fragmented in the voluntary carbon market world. It's good to have a regional play. And I think I talked with a lot of people in the region, and they are very excited to be part of these alliances.
Thank you for that update. It's really interesting to hear that Southeast Asia could provide up to 30% of the world's carbon credits, and Indonesia's role on that would be roughly half of that. As we talked about voluntary markets, there is emerging compliance markets that are coming about, specifically from the global climate negotiations. So, Ridwan, I wanted to ask you about Article 6 of the Paris Agreement and how you see that as a potential catalyst for carbon markets here in Indonesia.
Thank you, Jeff. And thank you for the but we understand. We're trying to, again, together helping to make the carbon market work again. And it's for sure, one of them is the Article 6 negotiation, where, again, one of the first play of the transactions of this is happening in the region, in Bangkok, for an US project that Sampo trying to facilitate as well. So it's a G2G kind of transaction between the Thailand government and Switzerland. So when we somehow, let's talk about what is this Article 6 about, right? So the basic is that if you imagine the carbon transaction was usually between B2B, or like, for a company want to be able to meet their target looking for carbon offset, as again being explained before. For now, this is for the NDC purpose. So if a country or if a buyer country are now want to meet their NDC target, they can purchase the carbon offset from a specific standards that has been agreed between the international agreement. And there are several schemes, and one of them that is still today in a discussion, obviously the International 6.4 under the CCC is still in negotiation. It was a bit of sad news last in COP28. However, there is other scheme where it's proven it's operational. This is what we call Article 6.2, where bilateral MOU, so G2G discussion between two countries can make an agreement together to purchase the what so-called verified emission reductions, now being labeled as the ITMOs, or internationally transferred mitigation options. So what the difference, very simple, it's the same as probably the DER, so like the carbon credit, but this one is now authorized by the government that issued, where the carbon credit for authorized for the NDC for the buyer country. So that was what kind of the new area and the new emerging, which also appearing to be the new trends in the region right now. Why South Pole is very willing to invest more into this kind of transaction? It is simply because it's a win-win for everyone. Win-win for the government, obviously to meet the target and creating new source of demand of a obvious, much more strict and comply good quality standards of carbon credit, obviously, but also it's actually shown that for the selling country, despite that they can get the investment from the carbon offsets, they also get direct sustainable development benefits. Like one clear example was if an e-bus or an e-bus project in Thailand, you can see that the credit of that e-bus may go for Switzerland to be claiming their NDC, right? But the bus remain in Thailand. The pollutions that we discussed this morning from the transport sector reduced thanks to the EV bus, right? So Thailand get the direct sustainable development benefits plus the investment. Obviously, the project themselves get financing from the new form of carbon finance. And again, I would like to stress why Indonesia then is the new central global hub, as potential is pretty big, as Pak mentioned, and we understand that the MOEF is also willing to use this instrument further. There are still obvious homework to move forward, but I want to make sure that despite that, my last point, despite that this sounds like a G2G high-level bilateral discussion, actually the most concrete one is actually came from B2B. So Article 6 transaction can channel the finance of buyer country, the government budget, to a private-owned project. So if your project are maybe eligible and can be developed as an Article 6 project, then somehow the pathway could be moving to that direction.
Thank you very much. I'd like to have one more question for Pak Aldi, related to carbon exchanges. The regulations seem to hint that there could be multiple exchanges, or do you see there being only one in Indonesia?
Yeah. Well, thank you for the question. I think it's very clear in the POJ 14 saying that all the what we call the operator of the carbon exchange should be fulfill the requirements on the POJ 14. So it's open for everyone. Yeah. And in this case, because the IDX somehow they fulfill all the requirements, that's why we give them the license. But it's open for everyone, since everyone can fulfill all the requirements on the POJ 14 and 12. Yeah.
Okay. Now I'd like to open up questions to the crowd.
Good afternoon, my name is Ilan from Geolipa. Listening to this panel, I feel like listening to the presidency debate about green fashion. Green fashion, the one that's one of the candidates asking, but I'm not asking that one. So I'd like to, I think, get some help from the panels about how to issue the carbon credits and monetize it, because we are the geothermal producers. We have been producing electricity from green energy since 2002, and we calculate how many tons of CO2 being saved, and we're trying to monetize it. I think that's not easy way to make it done. So is there anything that we can do, or anything that's the process we make it easy to monetize it, and where's the money come from? That's why some people ask me, saying, is this carbon credit real or just a gimmick for some industry? In fact, China is still, increasing more power plant based on coal, 1.5 gigawatts this year. So, and yet their products still being used all over the world, cheap, right? How we compete with that? So, if there are any things that we can do in universal ways to how to monetize the carbon credits, thank you.
We are in the same boat, I guess I give my 2 cents. Again, the opportunity or potential is big, in my opinion, for Indonesia, from geothermal or project technology based, or for land based, either basically for compliance. Sorry, for voluntary market. I guess you mentioned that can be bought by country for NDC requirement. That's huge potential in my opinion, right? Again, the challenge, Jeff, is basically how to allow foreign, I guess, buyer to buy, right, into the carbon credit created in India. Okay? Again, the methodology will not, and someone mentioned, that needs to be settled, right? Has to be agreed or has to be recognized by international market. I think that is, the biggest issue in my opinion, right? Because the domestic demand, I think we all discussed, without any carbon tax, there's no, people just doesn't need to buy carbon credit. Right? Again, carbon tax is important because if not, people can just flat, right, or can just emit without any penalties. The other issue is, take a look at Pertamina. We have, or we must reduce our carbon emissions, right? So there's a need, let's say, to buy carbon credit. We cannot actually physically reduce or sequester, right? But if you buy carbon credit, right, for Pertamina specifically in the biggest supply, I mean, I'm talking about the subsidy regime emissions, right? Pertamina sells subsidized products. We cannot pass it on to the end customers. So that is one of the biggest issues that we face. I'm sure it's also facing by PLN. But for private, right, if they buy carbon credit, right, because it's not mandatory compliance, they have to be able to pass it on to the end customers. So those are, in my opinion, the challenges, how to monetize. I mean, for geothermal selling to the grid, there's another challenge that the carbon credits now belong to PLN, right, for the future EPA. That's another regulatory. At the end, it's a small regulatory that needs to be addressed.
Can I just add a very quick comment on that? So we've been hearing the same issues, of course. I mean, there's a tech-based and also the NATO-based carbon credit. And then we've been hearing the same issue when it comes like the tech-based. And then just FYI, we've been hearing, and that's why we've been also working together with among other regulators to basically solve the issues. And then, when it comes like the international buyers, we've been also hearing the same insights from international, and then they're more, to be honest, to the database. That's why we've been also working with the related technical ministries to create like a demand, local demand for the database. And so it's very important for all of us to understand that demand should be coming from the compliance market. So that's why we've been pushing hard, to connect with the SMPPI to the Apple Gateway. So then the compliance, demand from the compliance will, we also be part of it. And then we do hopefully connecting the both system semester 1 of this year. So then, and then based on the insights, next year will be a very big demand coming from the domestic energy sector. It's approximately more than 10 million tons CO2. Yeah. So the good thing is the government been trying to also support all the stakeholders, not to contribute to the national internal indices, but also we also want to contribute to global. When it comes to global, we also have to be able to hear what other perspective. And then again, I mean, not trying to compare between tech-based and nature-based, but from what we have heard from the international more are interested in nature-based. That's why again, I mean, we've been trying to create the domestic for the energy sector.
Thank you for those responses. Any more questions?
My pleasure. Okay, good afternoon. I'm Sarida, and I would like to ask about for the carbon management and carbon finance that come into circular economy, because of the top of my heart, from the companies have a different strategic to support for the sustainable innovations, and also for the climate actions from the young generation. Thank you.
Can you repeat the question again? I'm sorry. Bahasa Indonesia ini nggak apa-apa, lebih apa?
What kind of the strategy from the companies to support for the carbon management and carbon finance? Because we know that for the young generation, it doesn't support for our climate action something.
Good question. I think I just want to also reiterate what Ali said. For some of you not familiar with carbon market or carbon credits, right? When Ali said that the technology base is basically talking about renewable energy. So for some of you who are in this space long enough, 10 years ago or 15 years ago, if you actually have a solar panel planted, you can get carbon credit. Because the idea is because you decided not to use coal power plant, you move into a solar power plant, solar panel, then you avoid an emission from those. So those are the basic fundamental of carbon credit. There is basically avoiding emission and you get credit, or you capture carbon in the air, you get credit. When Ali mentioned about the technology, it's actually using renewable energy. The problem is, people say that why do I have to pay you for you to plant your solar farm now? Because those are profitable. And then that has already become a business as usual, right? Solar farm, wind power, so that's why there's no value. And people now want to invest more on nature, where people plant trees or they conserve trees, which is totally the opposite. 15 years ago, a price of carbon credit from renewable energy is like $10, $15. Nature is only $2. So now everything is flipping. So that's why I think, that's what it is. But to answer your question, I think for company who invest in nature base, you really have to look at what they do on the ground. So I think that's the problem, the benefit that you can see. Why people want to invest in nature carbon credit is because not only you have to be able to prove you are avoiding emission or you actually remove emission, you have to work with community. And you also are protecting biodiversity. So that's why a lot of people are willing to invest in this space now. It's a huge task for younger generation, but that's why we always welcome people to come to our site, the younger generation, because putting aside the renewable energy, when we talk about solar panel, nature is very specific. Nature is something that is very important for us to preserve and conserve. And I think it's easier to communicate that to younger generation. When they talk about, oh, I'm saving the rainforest, I am conserving, I'm protecting, right? Rather than, oh, I'm doing a solar panel, I got carbon credit, they're like, I don't understand. So I think it's a much easier job for people who invest in nature than to invest in the technology. But putting that aside, Aldi, what happened today is, if I can create a technology that can actually suck all this carbon CO2 from the air and make it into, a solid CO2, I should get credit as well, right? I mean, the idea is to suck everything in. Unfortunately, there is a technology already there, but the carbon credit price has to be above $200 in order to make that work. So nobody's going to invest in that yet. So hopefully, that's what the idea of carbon credit is. There is a transition where there's a price go up, people are going to smarten up. I mean, recently Pia said, in order for human to be incentivized, there has to be price. If the price is low, we're not going to be incentivized to do it, right? We're like, bahasa Indonesia, bayar aja, it's cheap, right? I mean, technically that's the whole idea. So I think you need to have the carbon tax to play out. You need to have the technology. You have to see the price going up. And I think Edo make a very good comment. Jet is just one of it. So there's a lot of pieces ongoing in this country that actually want to do this. I don't know, maybe some of you are familiar. Jet is a very common, makes sense to decommission coal power plant. You know why? Because it's avoiding the future emission, right? So there's a talk about Jet now is to create something called what we call a transition credits, right? If Jet can be commissioned, that is a bit, but who is willing to pay for that transition credit? That's the basic point. If EU is willing to put if we can say the jet fee and put it EU ETS, we're going to get paid $100. But unfortunately, not everybody's willing to pay. That's the reality of the world today. There's a lot of talk, but no one's willing to pay. I think Indonesia has to be strategic in this sense. Unfortunately, that's the reality. Everybody's laughing, but that's true.
No, thank you for that explanation. We are now out of time, so I'd like to thank the panel with a round of applause.
Thank you very much. And again, if we could offer our appreciation as Bridgecam with certificates for our panelists. Jeff, in the absence of Donahue, just got called away very briefly. If you wouldn't mind sharing these with your panel, first of all, Danny. Dasono. Aldi. Ridwan. And Thea. And one photo all together with all the cameras.
One, two, three.
So Jeff, please don't go far. We are approaching that time of proceedings where our chairman of the Climate Change and Environment Hub, Jeff Fisher-Tellier, will start to bring together some of the key points, the key thoughts from those three very, very informative panels from this particular BritJam event, which is Indonesia's future as a sustainable investment superpower. Jeff, over to you.
Thanks, Chris, and thank you for all the attendees today, and also the panelists. It's been a great discussion. Today we had the opportunity to hear from business leaders and government officials that are driving Indonesia's energy transition, the development of an electric vehicle supply chain, and also the country's early carbon market.
Coba aja pakai kamera nggak apa-apa. Kamu mau ke depan?
Enggak, ini
Coba aja pakai kamera.
At the same time,
Tinggal ini semua tuh iya. Paham.
helping drive the economy to new heights.
Dia bisa di zoom.
Regarding the EV
Maksudnya
supply
kita dari
chain
panggung.
development, it is clear that the potential for EV markets in Indonesia is there. Major Indonesian companies are beginning to build EVs domestically, looking to capture the consumer market for two-wheelers, and major global firms are investing in battery production facilities at scale focused on export markets. However, there are challenges, such as battery waste handling, ensuring a sustainable supply chain, supporting infrastructure such as charging stations, and consumer preferences. Subsidies for EVs and incentives for battery recycling will be key in ensuring Indonesia's smooth transition to a more EV-oriented mindset. On the energy transition, it will not be easy, as the country is still dependent on coal for much of its electricity generation. However, there is a growing number of startups that have raised significant investment, and they are scaling solar on rooftops across industrial areas. Global banks are now financing mega floating solar projects, and these investments will continue to proliferate. Still, there are many renewable energy sector challenges, such as the limits on the amount of power a company can generate on its own. Clear legal standing and financial incentives from the government will be key to the transition. We've seen that carbon markets have been in operation in Indonesia for over a decade, with private sector and state-owned enterprises participating through the sales of carbon credits from renewable energy and also nature-based solutions. And Indonesia has already become a leader in Southeast Asia. The emergence of the carbon exchange last September signals that carbon trading will be an important activity for the economy. And the update today that credits to be sold overseas is a very good development. However, current policies have slowed growth in the carbon trading sector due to unclear regulations and have prevented Indonesia from becoming that major hub of carbon trading that it seeks to be. But the discussion today, I think, maps a way forward, and I think the future looks very positive. Again, thank you for your participation today. It was a pleasure to be here with you all. Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed for having led this wonderful event. Ladies and gentlemen, would you all mind standing up? We're going to have a photograph of everybody together to celebrate this, the first set-piece hub event of 2024 for BritJam, first from 7 hubs. Jeff, thank you so much for having led it all. Thank you to the panelists, thank you to the moderators, and in particular, thank you to all of you for having shown such a great interest and given your support to the thought leadership out of BritJam.
Can everyone move forward? Okay.
Forward! March!
All right.
Come on, Tommy! Come on! Come on, Tommy! Just in the nick of time. There we go.
Here. 1, 2, 3. One more. 1, 2, 3. To this camera. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay.
Thank you very much, everybody. Dinner and drinks outside.
Ini saatnya kalian
Dia